How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto became the catalyst Maelstrom and built Harem in Mass Effect? Part 1. Huge shout out to Never Ending Dawn for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. P.S. The viewpoint will be switching between Naruto and Shepard. Jane Shepard was getting annoyed with her team. She finally snapped. Okay, I get it. I don't want to be here either, but the council gave me an order. With no current leads on Saren, I don't have a choice on whether to do this or not. So will you please stop complaining and just help me do this so we can go back to searching for Saren? The shuttle they were using went quiet following her outburst. Liara immediately started to look contrite, but Geras turned his head away. Shepard could practically feel his frustration about to boil over into full-blown anger. Shepard sighed before continuing. Look, I'm sorry. I get what you guys are saying. I want to go after Saren as much as you, but as a Spectre, I have to listen to the council. Let's just check this planet out as quickly as possible, and get back to chasing Saren. Geras sighed before nodding and muttering. Okay, Commander. I'm just frustrated that even a Spectre seems unable to do anything without having the council hamper it. Shepard nodded before muttering. I know. I feel the same way. Shepard leaned against the wall as she felt her ship shake slightly as they approached the atmosphere of the unknown garden world that she was tasked with exploring. The council had sent the message 2 days ago. An Asari probe being sent to unexplored star systems had found a perfect garden world in a star system which was being referred to as the Shinos system. Unfortunately, the probe scans revealed extensive life forms. With the chance of advanced life forms being so high, Shepard had been directed to explore the planet. Depending on what she found, the future of the planet could be determined. If no intelligent life was found, the planet would immediately be included on a list of colonization prospects. If life was found, well, that would get complicated. As if in response to her thoughts, the ship suddenly jumped and everything turned off. With the mass effect field and boosters off, they immediately started a free fall. Shepard clutched the seat for a handhold and barely heard Liara exclaim. The ship hit an electromagnetic field. Trying to reboot the systems. Main engines not responding. Engaging emergency systems. Prepare for impact. Shepard said the only thing a normal person could say. Freak! Naruto felt calm. The nature chakra was flowing through his body in a comforting flow, combining with his normal chakra to enhance his body. He knew that his eyes would currently be colored to indicate his sage mode. Yet the calmness superseded himself. Nature was around him. Everything was functioning in complete order. It was so completely relaxing to feel at one with nature, where everything performed a purpose. His calmness was ruined though when he felt an ominous feeling of impending doom settle in his stomach. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around to check for danger, despite being able to sense everything for miles around. He quickly confirmed that there was nothing around to threaten him, but the feeling only intensified in his stomach. Naruto slowly rose out of the meditating position he had been in before, and prepared to confront any threat to appear. He remained perfectly still, every muscle tense to react for several seconds as the feeling continued to grow. He sensed it right on the edge of his sensing ability. His head snapped up and looked upon a giant projectile heading towards him at an insane speed. His complete astonishment froze him for just a moment, but it was enough for the speeding asteroid to close the distance. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the metal meteor about to hit him. Even he couldn't dodge it at such a close range. That was the last thing he thought before he was hit. The massive asteroid ripped a large furrow through the forest as it slowly came to a stop. It left a smoking trail of torn earth and trees in its path. It came to a stop after almost 100 meters. Once it stopped, complete silence reigned. It lasted almost 3 minutes before the door to the shuttle opened. The door slid open to reveal a trio. The one in the center was clutching her head as she exclaimed, "God damn, that hurt. That's why I wanted to take the Mako. It handles the impact far better." Another one of them, a beautiful blue woman, immediately replied, "The Mako wouldn't have handled it any better. The only reason we even survived was because the emergency systems managed to slow our descent at the last second." The first woman replied in an annoyed manner, Well, we're still banged up. I think several of my ribs are broken. We're going to have to message Joker to come pick us up once the connection clears up. Until then, let's get the first aid and what the. She was cut off after the remains of their shuttle started to shake. The three tipped back into the shuttle right before the shaking turned into something more serious. The shuttle flew into the air to reveal a dirt-covered Naruto. His clothes were completely shredded, revealing his skin which had turned dark brown. His eyes had the typical bar pupil which signified his sage mode, and the entire eyes, iris, and the usual whites of his eyes had turned red with the usual tonal-filled rings of when he accessed the chakra of the Ten Tails. As the shuttle crashed back into the earth well over 20 feet away from Naruto, he pointed at it and yelled, "What the hell was that? I almost died!" Which was true. It was only due to him instinctively acting that he had survived. He had used Kakashi's technique of Earth Grudge Spear to harden his skin to that of stone or metal, and he had harnessed the power of the Ten Tails that the tailed beasts had bestowed upon him years ago. That atop his already active Sage mode had basically made Naruto as indestructible as they come, and it had barely been enough. Apparently several tons of metal crashing into you at several hundred miles an hour was dangerous. Who knew? Naruto stopped fuming and raised his head as he sensed life within the metal. Almost at the same point, he heard a groan coming from it. He hesitated for only a moment before leaping into the opening of the asteroid/ship. He peeked in and saw an unconscious trio laying on the floor, no doubt losing consciousness when he threw it. Naruto immediately acted to help them. He released his tailed beast chakra and the earth technique before creating several clones. The clones jumped in and grabbed the three people and carried them outside. The clones laid them on the ground nearby before going into the forest to get wood for a fire. The original Naruto took the opportunity to examine the three people who had ridden in the thing that almost killed him. He'll start by describing the normal one first. It was a woman. She looked to be several years older than him. She had red hair that barely reached her eyes in the front, but was about shoulder length in the back. She was wearing a black and red armor suit with N7 on the front. The next one was a little harder to describe. It was another woman, he thought. The problem was that she was blue though, and instead of hair, had weird tentacle. The white and pink suit she was wearing clearly showed she had friests. So he categorized her as a woman. The third one was possibly weirdest of all. Its face was a weird lizard-bird hybrid. A carapace covered the front, and it had mandible things around its mouth. Other than that, its waist was thinner than any humans could, and it only had 3 fingers per hands. 1 thumb and 2 fingers, all of which had claws on the end. This one was wearing a black and blue armor. Naruto noticed that all 3 were injured. The lizard thing looked to have a wound in its side, and a quick skin showed that the human had several broken ribs. Although the blue woman was too confusing to be precise, she also looked to have several injuries. Naruto scratched his head as he prepared to start working on them. He was interrupted though when the human-looking woman's arm was covered in an orange apparatus. A voice started speaking. Naruto couldn't understand what was being said, but he distinctively heard shepherd. Naruto slowly approached and lifted up the woman's arms so that Naruto's mouth was by the orange tool. Figuring it was like a radio, Naruto spoke into it. "Hello, is anyone there? Can you understand me?" The tool started beeping for several seconds before suddenly Naruto could understand the voice on the other end. "Commander, come in. Shepard, please answer. Our scans show your ship crashed. Please report condition. Shepard, come in." Naruto spoke again. "Hello? I think your Shepard is unconscious right now. Her life doesn't seem to be in danger though." The link went silent for several moments before the same voice spoke with surprise clear in his voice. "Who is this?" Naruto scratched his head as he answered. "I'm Naruto." The voice continued to speak in astonishment. "Are you a native? The Omni-Tool records show that your language hasn't been recorded before." Naruto scratched his head again before saying, "I think so. Your metal ship thing hit me, and when I checked it out, I found the 3 passengers unconscious." The voice immediately repeated incredulously. "The ship hit you? Never mind. I'm not sure what to say to a newly discovered intelligent species. I'm Joker, pilot of the SSV Normandy. What's up?" Naruto's sweat dropped as he replied. I was almost killed by a hunk of metal falling from the sky. What do you think? When Joker gave an uneasy laugh, Naruto continued. Listen. I have no idea what's going on. You clearly have no idea how to explain it to me. I'll take care of whatever these people are. Hopefully they can tell me what the hell is going on. Bye. Naruto dropped the unconscious woman's arm and prepared to start taking care of them. Jane Shepherd tossed her head as she felt the pain of her ribs greet her as she gained consciousness, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it should be. A dull ache where it should be agony. Finally remembering what had happened before she fell unconscious, she sat up quickly and pulled out a handgun. She pointed it in front of her as she tried to get her bearings. Her eyes moved through the trees surrounding her as she looked for any threats. Seeing none, she examined her surroundings closer. She had been laid on a blanket surrounding a fire. Geras and Liara were on either side of her, still unconscious. Realizing her situation, she immediately used her Omni tool to contact Joker. She reported, Normandy, this is Shepherd. Repeat. Normandy, this is Commander Shepherd. Shuttle crashed, and team unconscious. Evidence indicate natives found us. Request immediately evacuation and support. The response only took a second to arrive. Shepherd had never been so glad to hear Joker's voice. Commander. Good to hear from you. You've been unconscious for half a day. Unfortunately, evacuation will have to wait. Shepherd immediately questioned. Why? The electromagnetic field around the planet which caused your shuttle to crash. It's weird, Captain. Initial scans didn't pick it up, but it is strong enough to do the same to any ship we send down there. We're trying to reprogram the Mako to take it, but it might take up to a week, Commander. Shepherd responded as her eyes continued to scan the surroundings for any life. That is unacceptable. Something found us here. Liara and Geras are out, and the natives might return any second. Joker paused before explaining nervously. I don't think that's a problem, Commander. When you were out, I was trying to contact you. What have the natives picked up? Shepherd's eyes widened as she questioned. What? What did it say? Nothing much, Commander. He said his name is Naruto. Well, I think it's a he. Anyways, he said he was going to take care of you guys while you were out. I think he's friendly. I already sent a message to the council about it. Joker claimed. Shepherd prepared to respond, but was cut off when a voice behind her announced. Relax. I'm not going to eat you. If I wanted you dead, you would be. Shepherd spun around and pointed her gun towards the voice. Her eyes widened as she looked at the person. He looked human. Well, there were some differences, but she could easily believe the person was human. His hair was a bright blonde, and while it was spiky, the back was tied into a ponytail that reached about to the top of the man's bottom. The bangs partially covered his ambidextrous eyes. The right was a deep cerulean blue, and the left was a violet color. He also had weird markings on his cheeks, like whiskers. Otherwise, he seemed completely normal. He was about 6 feet tall with the figure of an athlete. He was dressed in a bluish-gray long-sleeved shirt with red swirls on both shoulders. His pants were the same color, but had multiple pockets. His shoes looked to be black sandals. He also wore gray fingerless gloves. In his hand, he had a line of fish. The person's eyes narrowed, and then moved. Shepherd wasn't really sure what happened, but the next thing she knew, she was on the ground. She blinked several times only to see the person standing over her, her gun in his hands. He examined it for a moment before stating, While I'm not sure what this thing is, your bearing seems to indicate that it is a weapon of some sort. As I already stated, if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. So I don't want you pointing a weapon at me. Then, to her shock, he tossed the gun back to her. As she grabbed it, she saw him watching her. She hesitated a moment before putting it away. She didn't want to make him her enemy. That she could tell. The man nodded before walking to the other end of the fire. He sat down and calmly started to skin the fish. Shepherd waited a minute before she opened her mouth to ask something. Before she could, though, the person spoke. Not right now. I healed the 3 of you the best I could. You're awake first because I haven't ever seen whatever those things are, so I couldn't risk messing with their wounds too much. They should be awake soon, though. I'd rather we wait till they're awake to start asking each other questions. Despite the questions running through her minds, she nodded. The other two of them started stirring right as the fish was about to finish. The woman quickly started tending to them, thankfully breaking her unrelenting stare she had fixed him with. The blue woman seemed confused, but quickly calmed down. The other thing not so much. He also pulled out a gun and cast many suspicious looks in Naruto's directions as the woman spoke to it. Naruto forced himself to stay calm though. He continued to cook the fish till it was ready. He then handed them to the three. The two women scanned it with the orange tools on their arms before slowly starting to eat, trying to hide their discomfort with eating with their hands. The other thing just put it on the ground after scanning it, and pulled out a package of stuff, which it proceeded to eat. Naruto held in his curiosity as he ate his own fish. Once he finished and saw that the two women seemed to have stopped eating after a few bites, he prepared to speak. Finally he asked, "Since you are all awake now, let's talk." Naruto held up a hand to stop the first woman from speaking. Naruto continued, "I believe I have a right to get answers first since I cared for you after your ship thing almost killed me. So, who the hell are you, and what are those two?" The first woman thought for a moment before answering slowly. "I am Commander Jane Shepard." She pointed to the blue woman and continued, "This is Liara Tsoni, the other thing. And this is Gurus Vicarian." She waited a moment before continuing. "We are part of a galactic civilization. A society of multiple sentient races who have achieved space flight. This includes the Aseri," pointing at Liara, "the Turians," pointed at Gurus, "and humans." She pointed to herself. She continued, "There are many others, but it is difficult to describe them all. Basically, an Aseri probe found this planet. I was sent with my ship to scout it out." Naruto nodded as he thought. A galactic civilization. It was a lot to take in. He finally asked, "And what happens now that you know this planet is occupied?" Shepard responded immediately. "That would depend on the level of this species' technology, but you will probably be brought into the galactic community." Naruto nodded once again. He thought for a moment before asking, "I don't suppose that you can just leave and pretend this planet doesn't exist, huh?" The three were in shock for several moments before the woman asked in a completely shocked tone, "What?" Naruto just raised an eyebrow at them before explaining, "You know what I mean. Is it possible that this planet can stay out of your galactic community?" The woman once again seemed too shocked to come up with an intelligent response, so only asked, "Why?" Naruto just gave a heavy sigh before fixing them with a stare and explaining, "This planet has been embroiled in wars for as long as anyone can remember. Just 3 years ago, everyone came together, forgetting their hatred and differences, to confront a threat that threatened the freedom of every living thing on this planet. We prevailed. We have achieved a true peace, but it is a fragile peace that could still crumble after this generation. The revelation of a galactic community and our subsequent immersion in it could spell disaster for the peace everyone has sacrificed to achieve." The human and Turian just looked confused, but the Aseri looked interested. The human responded, "I'm sorry, but Joker told me that he already sent a report to the council informing them of intelligent life on this planet. Anything we find out would just add to the report. They would still send several other ambassadors here, regardless of what more I sent." Naruto sighed and leaned back to look at the slowly darkening sky. This could put everything at jeopardy. Oh well, it was too late to try and prevent it. Naruto looked at the trio again before motioning. "Okay, I've got a lot to think about. Please ask any questions you want to before night falls. Although I treated your wounds to the best of my ability, a good night's sleep is still a good idea." The three nodded, and with the apparent invitation, Liara immediately questioned, "What form of government does this planet use, and how did it come about?" Naruto nodded before answering. "Officially, the land is split into multiple nations which are all headed by a civilian daimyo. In reality, though, ninjas rule." The Turian quickly asked, "Ninjas? Like the dudes wearing black and performing assassinations?" Naruto shrugged before clarifying. "Even though they're called ninjas, they don't usually fit that description. Basically, they are warriors. We do quite a bit of sneaking and assassination, but most prefer to fight face to face. Shepard was the one who questioned. You just said we. So are you a ninjas? Naruto just nodded and said, Yes, I am. Anyways, ninjas truly rule the land. Ninjas are part of ninja villages. Although there are many spread throughout the land, 5 villages, called the 5 Great Shinobi Villages, hold the most ninjas and power. Each of these villages is headed by a powerful ninja, called a Kage. Each village is located in a nation, and in return for funding from the daimyo, agrees to protect the country and follow any direct orders of the daimyo. Liara quickly asked, So why do you say that ninjas really rule if they follow the orders of the daimyos? Naruto nodded in understanding before elaborating. That was the original agreement. That agreement was made about a century ago when ninjas were separated into warring clans. After the establishment of the ninja villages, much of the violence between ninjas lessened. Ninjas quickly grew in power, while samurais, the soldiers of the daimyos, weakened in power. Eventually ninjas were the only real armies of nations. The only way the daimyos controlled the ninjas was due to the funding they provided, but even that lessened as ninja villages started performing services for those willing to pay. It was only due to the intense conflict between the villages that daimyos even had a measure of control. The ninja villages stayed militarized even in peacetime, and lead sabotage and espionage missions against the other villages. They needed the money of the daimyo, but the daimyos didn't really have much power over the ninja villages anymore. In essence, they became figureheads, and that was about 10 years ago. Naruto looked at the 3 of them to make sure they understood before continuing. So even 10 years ago the daimyos had basically no real power. Then came the war 3 years ago. To cut things short, all the ninja villages united and managed to defeat a man who wanted to enslave the entire world. We succeeded in that, and the bonds we made during the war have persisted. Relative peace has followed, along with the demilitarization of all the villages. Without the threat of each other, each of the ninja villages have lost any real need for the funding of the daimyos. Shepard was the one who now asked a question. You said someone wanted to enslave the entire planet. How would he do this? You didn't even recognize my gun earlier. I really doubt you have any weapon which could be capable of taking over an entire planet. Geras replied in a surprised tone. They haven't even developed guns yet. This must be a really primitive civilization. Liara seemed slightly disappointed at that. Naruto developed a tick mark on his forehead after hearing that. He looked at Shepard and commented. So that was a weapon earlier. Well, there is actually a perfectly reasonable explanation on why we wouldn't have developed something like that. Our warfare isn't based around technology. If any village had tried to develop weapons like that, the other villages would have done everything in their power to stop it. What technology I've seen is rather spaced out and exclusive. Spring Country has trains, heat generators, and several other things. Sky Country developed flying machines. The only widespread form of technology I've seen, though, is medical. There are complex processes we are capable of. The most complex I've seen would be gene manipulation, genetic recording, and vaccine creation. Liara quickly started muttering to herself. Amazing. Limited combat-oriented technology. Industrial-age transportation, but highly advanced medical sophistication. For an apparently warlike situation, that is unheard of. I'd expect the complete opposite based on similar cultures like the Krogan or Turians. As Liara continued to mutter to herself, Geras asked, You said that warfare isn't based on technology. So what is it based on? Considering your other technology, I seriously doubt you use bronze weapons or anything? Naruto hesitated here. Using his sage mode, he had been able to sense that these aliens were entirely absent of chakra. They even lacked the sealed chakra system that civilians did. However, he did sense that Shepard and Liara had a different form of energy that seemed to be generated from certain nodules within the body. It was rough and uncoordinated though, with the Asari having better control. Just from that Naruto could tell that it was far inferior to chakra. If he had judged their intentions wrongly, and their galactic civilization was intending to attack, explaining what chakra was could have far-reaching consequences. Oh well, he seriously doubted he had judged them wrong. Between his telepathy abilities from the Ten Tails, and his own gut, he was about as sure as anyone could be. Naruto held out his hand and created a weak Rasengan, which glowed in the encroaching darkness of night. As the three looked at it in awe, Naruto explained, "Ninjas and samurais harness an energy called chakra. Chakra is the combination of physical energy, taken from every cell in the body, and spiritual energy, taken from one's mind, which is strengthened through experience and meditation. Using chakra, we can perform many supernatural feats, from super strength to walking on water." The two women immediately started scanning the Rasengan with those orange tools while the Turian scoffed and exclaimed sarcastically, "Are you joking? You really expect us to believe you can walk on water? That just looks like biotics." Naruto just raised an eyebrow and claimed, "And a whole lot more than that." Before Geras could reply, Liara exclaimed, "Goddess! The readings are amazing. No mass effect field, no indication of easel, no spatial distortion. It even has mass. I've never seen anything like this, even in the Asari archives." Naruto shrugged before admitting, "While I have no idea what you just said, I'll even give a demonstration." Naruto stood and started walking towards a tree. Naruto mentally smirked as the group gawked as he walked up the side of the tree till he was hanging upside down from a branch. Now he felt what it was like showing this to a group of genin. Chuckling to himself, Naruto jumped and flipped in the air to land on his feet. He then announced, "Okay, that's enough questions for now. You guys should get to sleep. Since your ship is destroyed, I assume you're here for a while. Considering you are basically representatives of the entire galactic civilization, I'll take you to Konoha. It's the nearest major hidden village. You can talk to the 5 Kages there." Shepard nodded before asking, "How long will it take to get there?" Naruto thought for a moment before stating, "At civilian speed, about a week and a half." Shepard blinked for a moment before exclaiming, "I'm sorry, but we don't have that much time. Is there anywhere closer?" Naruto shrugged before claiming in a light-hearted manner, "No, but I guess I can speed it up. You'll have to deal with the uncomfortable ride though. Just go to sleep." She looked like she wanted to ask something, but eventually acceded. The trio started to uncomfortably settle onto the blankets he had given them. He watched them settle down. He made no move to settle himself down. Since gaining the power of the Ten Tails, combined with his natural Uzumaki vitality, he hadn't had the need to sleep as often as before. He only needed to sleep maybe 2 or 3 hours every several days, and that was about the maximum amount he could sleep. Ninjas were trained to manage on little sleep, but performance gradually decreased. It took at least 2 weeks without sleep for Naruto to even feel it anymore. It was actually quite annoying. Oh well, Naruto settled himself down to prepare to watch over the sleeping trio. As the sun started peeking over the horizon, Shepard stirred. She sat up and looked around in slight confusion before remembering what had happened the previous evening. She sat up, and blinked when she didn't feel any pain from her ribs. She gently felt them, but there still wasn't any pain. She shook away her confusion and activated her Omni tool. She quickly started constructing a report of all they had learned about the natives of this planet, and her immediate plans. She sent it to Joker, who would then send it to the Council. As soon as she deactivated her Omni tool, a voice spoke up, causing her to jump. "You realize it's rude to report on someone when they are present, right?" Shepard turned to look at Naruto. She jumped again when she saw how close he was. He was crouching within feet of her. She felt her face heat up at her reaction to him. She stood up stiffly, firmly ignoring his amused face. She then cleared her throat before asking him, "So when do you think we should set out?" Naruto shrugged before nodding at the other two before clarifying, "Whenever they wake up. I can get you to Konoha within several hours. You'll have a better meal there, and a proper medic to look at any remaining wounds you have. I've only picked up a few things here and there, so I'm hardly what you call an expert. The Turian especially. Since I didn't know his physiology, I just bandaged his wound." Shepard nodded before she started looking around the area while she waited for Liara and Geras to wake up. She paused and looked at one of the trees. It looked a lot like the pictures she had seen of trees on Earth, although it was hardly surprising. The atmosphere was similar enough for her to breathe, The planet was of a similar size to Earth, and had similar temperature. For all intents and purposes, this was basically a second Earth. The only real difference preliminary scans had shown was high levels of an unknown radiation emitting from the planet. Although they had basically no information on this radiation, what they did have told them that it wasn't harmful. Maybe that was the reason for this species' incredible powers. Although she was disturbed by the human appearance of Naruto. No matter how similar to Earth, it was impossible that his species could just naturally be that human-like. She was interrupted from her thoughts when she saw that Liara and Geras were stirring. She quickly explained the plan, and within moments the group was ready. Shepard turned to Naruto and asked, "So how can we get to this Konoha so quickly? Do you have a vehicle nearby?" Naruto just gave an amused smirk which made Shepard slightly annoyed before he replied, "Of a sort." Naruto ignored her confusion and proceeded to bite his thumb. He then made some weird signs with his hands and then slammed him down on the ground. Shepard practically had a heart attack when an explosion of smoke happened. She jumped back and tried to blow the smoke out of her face, but froze when she heard a loud voice. "Yo, bro, been a long time since you summoned me. What do you need?" Shepard's jaw dropped as the smoke cleared to show Naruto standing on top of a frog that must be at least 20 feet tall. It was orange with several purple markings. Not to mention it was also the one who spoke. Shepard watched as Naruto patted the frog's head and told it, "Yeah, sorry about that. Been a while since I needed any of the toad's help. Anyways, you see those three?" The apparent toad looked at Shepard now and leaned down to examine them closer. Finally it yelled, "While I'm fine with the two hot chicks, what is the other thing? Some experiment by Orochimaru to mix a lizard with a human or something, dot." Shepard and Liara had to hold in their chuckles at the look on Geras' face. Naruto just chuckled before declaring brazenly, "Nope. They're aliens. Their ship fell out of the sky yesterday and almost killed me?" Somehow the toad managed to give a skeptical look to Naruto, who was perched on his head, before asking, "Aliens? Really? I thought that was just some fairy tale." Naruto shrugged before replying, "I know, but they are aliens. The ship is just over that way a bit, although it's basically just a hunk of metal now." The toad went silent for a moment before suddenly exclaiming excitedly, "Sweet. Things have been so boring lately. It's just like you to find something like this to make things more interesting. I can't believe you even went for 3 years without getting into some sort of trouble." Naruto just chuckled before explaining, "Well, they need to get to one of the hidden villages. Konoha is the closest, and they want to hurry. Think you can give them a ride? I'll run alongside you." Gamakichi nodded before claiming, "Sure, I could use some exercise, but it will be an uncomfortable ride if they can't use chakra to keep from flying off." Naruto gave an evil smirk before saying, "Don't worry. That's their problem." 4 hours later, when Gamakichi stopped his hopping, Shepard slipped off his back to land on the ground heavily. She didn't care at all about appearances or the fact that she was an elite agent. All she cared about was having solid ground under her. She distinctly heard Geras and Liara fall down next to him. Then she heard an infuriating sound. The amused laugh of Naruto, who then spoke. "Well, you guys are the ones that needed to hurry. Don't tell me a little rough travel is too much for you." Geras quickly groaned. "Great. He's sadistic." His response was another laugh before Naruto claimed, "I'm not sadistic. I have just developed an enjoyment of watching people be in a certain amount of pain." Liara was the one who replied in a groan. "That is the meaning of sadism." Naruto gave yet another laugh before he exclaimed, "I know, but considering how I used to act, I doubt anyone else could believe I have a sadistic bone in my body. So keep it a secret." Before they could reply, Shepard saw several clones of Naruto pop into existence. When she was frozen, the 3 clones all walked up to each of them on the floor and put glowing green hands over their bodies. Shepard let out half a moan before she clamped her mouth shut with her face heating up again. She couldn't believe she just moaned out loud, but one could hardly blame her. Whatever he was doing, it felt good. All the pain left to leave a pleasurable tingling sensation. She heard Liara give a short moan also, but Geras actually started grumbled about it feeling weird. The Naruto clone disappeared, and with it the pleasant sensation. With it gone, Shepard felt all the bruises that had developed and the motion sickness disappear. She stood up slowly before looking at Naruto in confusion before asking, "Okay, what was that?" Naruto just waved a hand and replied briefly, "A healing jutsu. It's nothing." Shepard was about to demand more of an explanation, but stopped when she saw the thinking expression on Naruto's face. She asked, "What's wrong?" Naruto replied without any consideration, "The jutsu made you and Liara aroused." Shepard and Liara immediately blushed before both denied it immediately. Naruto didn't seem to hear them. He just closed his eyes and took a thinking pose. Finally, the two of them quieted down. Naruto immediately opened his eyes and fixed them with a stare so intense both of them couldn't interrupt him as he spoke. "You were, but it isn't something to be ashamed about. It seems to be an unintended consequence of my chakra being injected into you. Every living thing on this planet has chakra to some degree. While a healing jutsu isn't painful to us, we are able to feel the intrusion into our chakra network. Although the pain leaving is nice, there is a distinctly uncomfortable feeling to it. Your bodies reacted differently. Since you don't have chakra, it changed how the chakra reacted. It still performed its purpose, but only because I controlled it to do it. If I had faltered in my control, though, well, I can't guess what would happen. Just the residual effects made you feel enough pleasure to actually become aroused. I don't want to see what would happen if I injected unrefined chakra into you. Might cause your mind to break from pleasure or may even disintegrate your flesh it touches. Healing chakra specifically heals, regular chakra can just as easily destroy." Shepard didn't quite understand all of what he meant, considering she still didn't quite understand what chakra was, but she did manage to ask, "What does that mean?" Naruto just looked at her before stating, "It means that it isn't a good idea for me to use any more healing jutsu on you. In fact, I think only Tsunade-bachan should be able to. She might be able to explain what is happening. I'm not really a medic, so I'm just not suited for figuring this out." Shepard decided to get away from the topic of him somehow arousing her by asking, "So are we near Konoha?" Naruto nodded before claiming, "Not even half a mile away. I don't usually ride a toad into the village itself cause civilians get excited. It should only take us a minute to reach the gate. I already warned Tsunade that we will be arriving." Shepard frowned before asking, "How? I didn't see you pull out a radio or anything." Naruto lifted up his sleeve to show a tattoo on his right shoulder. It was a weird symbol she didn't understand. Naruto explained though. "This is called Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing. This symbol is made up of dozens of small seals. I pumped chakra into it when you dropped of Gamakichi. The 5 Kages are the only ones with the same seal. Theirs will have burned when I activated mine. It is a message that I'll summon them in an hour for a meeting. They are also able to feel their relative distance from me. Tsunade-bachan will be able to tell we're nearby. Now come on, let's get to the gate. It will be in view in a minute." He then rather firmly ignored Liara, who tried to ask him more questions about this Fuinjutsu. True to his word, the trees ended to show a huge gate moments later. Shepard was amazed by the sight of the gate. It must have stood at least 100 feet tall, and was flanked by a stone wall of the same side. Naruto didn't stop walking, leaving them behind slightly. She walked slightly faster to catch up as she saw Naruto approaching the guards. One of the guards immediately raised a hand in greeting before saying, "Naruto, good to see you again." Naruto just smiled before exclaiming, "It's good to be back. Not a surprise though that you two are still on gate duty." The guards laughed, but before they could reply, several figures appeared. Shepard jumped back as the people wearing masks appeared literally out of nowhere. Naruto didn't seem surprised though and waited till the lead figure announced, "Uzumaki. We are to welcome you to Konoha and express the wishes of the Hokage that you meet with her immediately." Naruto nodded before answering, "Of course. Tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. The figures nodded before disappearing once again. Shepard asked in shock, "Did you guys just see that?" Geras nodded and fiddled with his headgear before saying, "Yeah, but I almost can't believe it. I slowed it down. It wasn't teleportation. They just moved at a speed our eyes couldn't detect or follow. Shepard. Shepard gulped before asking. Yes? Gurus responded. I think we don't even understand what sort of force we unleashed on the galaxy, and how much this might affect the future. Shepard nodded and sighed as she admitted sadly. I know. Their discussion was interrupted by Naruto, who yelled from 20 feet away. Hey, come on! Naruto motioned for them to follow him. Shepard waited till they were past the gate before asking. Why did they know you? They talked as if you were friends. Naruto turned to her before nodding. Yeah, they know me. Kotetsu and Izumo. They're good guys. We know each other because Konoha was my village. I was born here, raised here, and fought for here. It was Gurus who asked. Why the past tense? Naruto shrugged before replying briefly. Because Konoha isn't my village anymore. The three quickly sensed this was a subject Naruto didn't want to elaborate on. The three turned their attention to their surroundings. Liara looked the most excited, but even Shepard and Gurus couldn't deny how interesting the village was. The entire village seemed to be positioned in a huge crater. It also seemed to be a weird mix of technology and rustic features. The buildings were all well crafted, there were numerous streetlights, there were quite a few TVs and shop windows, and the clothing of the people walking around was remarkably modern looking. On the other hand, metal didn't seem to be widespread for buildings. They were using carts to move things instead of any vehicles, and most of the roads weren't paved. The people were also behaving curiously. You'd think Gurus and Liara would be drawing all sorts of looks, but most of the people saw them and just shrugged before continuing their business like normal. The three were so captivated by the scenery that they ran into Naruto when they stopped. Naruto chuckled before pointing at a building and informing them. This is the Hokage's residence. This is where she does most of her work. The three looked at the building. It was right at the base of the giant mountain with faces carved into them. It was easily the biggest building they had seen yet in the village. It was at least 7 or 8 floors, narrowing into a dome-shaped roof. The building was painted red, with 2 characters on the side. One meant fire, and the other was the same symbol that Naruto had on his shoulder. Liara quickly questioned. What does that symbol mean? It can't just be coincidence that it matches the seal on your shoulder. Also, why did you say Hokage just now? I thought the leaders were called Kages? Naruto nodded and answered as he led them in. The Hokage is the leader of Konoha. Each leader of the 5 major shinobi villages takes the name Kage. They are all different though, representing the unique characteristics of each village. Suna has the Kazakage, Kumo the Reikage, Kiri the Mizukage, and Iwa has the Tsuchikage. Naruto lifted his sleeve to show the seal on his shoulder again. He then continued. This is the kanji meaning shinobi. It is also the symbol used by the allied shinobi forces in the 4th Shinobi World War. Each village has its own symbol, but the villages all agreed to keep the organization running in the name of peace and cooperation. Now each shinobi wears 2 symbols, on of their home village, and this one. It shows their dedication to stopping any more wars. Liara quickly spoke. Amazing. Can we please know more about this war you keep speaking of? Naruto shrugged as he led them up some stairs before claiming. There really isn't a whole lot to tell you. Bad guy tries to take over world, we united to stop him, and a lot of people died in the fight. Otherwise though, we might be stronger than ever. We've had several years to recover, and all the villages didn't bring the younger shinobi into the war, so many of them have grown and filled the space of those lost. Our forces are all coordinating to take care of any threat with more efficiency as well. Trade has increased. Given a few more years, and we'll be on a whole different level of strength as before. The war itself was ugly and brutal though. Not much else I can tell you. Gurus spoke up now with purpose. Really? I doubt that. I think you have a lot you could tell us about the war. Naruto looked over with a rueful smirk as he commented. So you picked up on it? Shepard was confused, but was saved from having to ask by Liara, who quickly asked in confusion. What are you two talking about? Gurus tuned to them before he announced to them. I think that Naruto here is more important than we have been led to believe. I've had a gut feeling about it since I woke up. He was too calm and sure of himself when he was dealing with us. This isn't a random civilian. This is someone who is used to leading and is in a position of power. I'm certain of it now after watching him. Firstly, there is that seal. He can apparently contact the 5 Kages and summon them when he wishes, whatever that means. These are the leaders of the country. It's like someone being able to call the council into session whenever he wants. There were also people watching him with awe. I also heard several talking about him being the Naruto. He isn't just anybody. Liara and Shepard flushed slightly at not realizing it before looking at Naruto. Naruto turned to them and gave a sheepish grin as he scratched the back of his head. He spoke up in an embarrassed voice. Yeah, I was hoping to keep that secret for a while. I'm unique, you could say. The best thing you could call me is that I'm a war hero. Let's leave it at that for now. We need to speak to the Hokage now. He ended by gesturing to the door they had stopped by. The 3 reluctantly agreed, to Naruto's clear relief. Shepard watched as Naruto opened the door without knocking. She then was left with a slack jaw as he yelled in the room. Hey Bachan! Couldn't wait to see your priest again, so I decided to drop by for a visit. He was then interrupted when a paperweight collided with his face. The 3 aliens were left to watch as they peered in the door to see a beautiful blonde woman, who must be this Tsunade, scream. I'm going to kill Jiraiya in the afterlife. He infected you with the pervert disease. They then turned as Naruto literally peeled the paperweight from his face, revealing a large red mark on his face, as he said as if he hadn't just been nailed in the face with a projectile. While I can't say that Jiraiya isn't completely at free of fault, I've decided it is part of being a male. Jiraiya and me are just part of an extremely small group of awesome males who don't feel the need to lie and hide our nature of manliness. If anything, open perverts are better than everyone else who hides their nature and tries to act like he isn't interested in the female body. Once he stopped speaking, Naruto had to duck to dodge another projectile. Tsunade immediately yelled. And stop defending it. You're too damn persuasive. I won't let you spread the idea that being a pervert is okay. Naruto now calmly dodged more projectiles as he replied calmly. It is okay though, and I dislike how you call me a pervert. I'm interested in the female form. That's all. Does me telling you that each of your priests deserves to be one of the wonders of the world make me a pervert? Realizing that Naruto could dodge anything she threw, Tsunade leapt out of her seat to land a punch to the surprised Naruto's face. Shepard now thought she must be hallucinating when she saw Naruto fly through several walls. After the punch, Tsunade screamed. Yes. That definitely makes you a pervert. Especially when you still call me Bachan. Geras spoke in a scared whisper. Shepard, I don't think this was such a good idea. Shepard could only nod, but couldn't speak before she heard a voice that once again left her frozen in shock. Damn, Bachan. I still can't believe I ever would have preferred that flick of yours over something else, but those punches really hurt. Despite his words, Naruto walked through the opening in the wall looking as if he hadn't just been used to create the hole. He cracked his neck, completely relaxed before he pointed to the trio and continued. But we can't put on such an embarrassing show now, can we? We have guests. Tsunade looked at the trio for the first time. While she was examining them, they got to look at her closely for the first time. Shepard had to admit that this Tsunade was a beautiful woman of unnatural quality. She was light-skinned and had long blonde hair which was tied into 2 ponytails in the back. Her eyes were a light amber color. She was wearing a green robe over a gray kimono-styled blouse which left her sizable cleavage showing. Even Shepard had to blush slightly at the view. She then subconsciously crossed her arms over her own wrists. While certainly not small by normal standards, compared to this woman in front of her they were. The cleavage the woman was flaunting just seemed to enhance this feature. She quickly accepted Naruto's interest in the woman. Shepard saw Liara ogling the woman's wrists in awe, and even Geras looked to be sneaking peeks despite the females of his species not having mammary glands. What Shepard couldn't understand was why Naruto called the woman Bachan. The woman looked to be at most 30. Tsunade seemed to calm down. She looked away from them down to the large amount of papers on her desk. She then told Naruto calmly. I just knew that you were going to find some trouble, Naruto. Let's just wait for Kakashi to arrive before we head to the Kage Council room. Naruto nodded and turned his head. Shepard realized that there was actually another person in the room. It was a demure-looking girl with brown hair and wearing a kimono. He smiled before announcing, "Nice to see you again, Shizen. I have to say once again, motherhood has made you even more beautiful." Shizen smiled. For some reason she remained completely immune to the compliment before she said, "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Kakashi-kun tells me the same thing every day." Naruto just chuckled before asking, "So where is little Sakumo-kun?" Shizen quickly answered, "He's over at Kurenai's with little Asuma. He goes there whenever I come to work." Naruto looked at Tsunade before asking, "When did you tell Kakashi-sensei to be here? I don't feel like waiting several hours." Tsunade gained a tick mark on her head as she announced, "I sent him a special message telling him to be here, but he still always insists on coming at least a few minutes late. He should be arriving in 3, 2, 1. Immediately a man leapt through the open window. He landed silently and said simply, "Yo." Shepard decided to ignore the fact that he had jumped through a window several stories off the ground, since it seemed this species seemed to perform impossible acts, as if they were simple. Instead she looked at the man. He had whitish-gray hair that seemed to naturally spike upwards. He also had a blue mask that only showed his eyes, one of which was covered by a headband. Otherwise he seemed to be wearing clothes similar to all the other ninjas Shepard had seen. He also was holding an orange book in his hand. Naruto smiled as he said calmly, "Hey, Kakashi-sensei. Right on time." Kakashi just tilted his head and scrunched his only visible eye in a way that gave Shepard the distinct impression he was smiling before commenting in an aloof tone, "Really? I guess I should have waited a few more minutes then. Can't have people actually expect me to arrive on time." Tsunade now yelled angrily, "Damn it, Kakashi! You were supposed to be here today anyways. You've been designated the next Hokage for 2 years, but you've yet to do any work preparing you for it." Kakashi waved his hand as he exclaimed in a teasing voice, "But why? I don't want to do paperwork all day." "You think I do?" Tsunade stopped speaking when the calm Shizen suddenly spoke up in a sweet voice that sent a shiver down even Shepard's spine. "Kakashi-kun, what did I tell you about reading that book in public?" Kakashi didn't seem affected though. He just claimed in the same aloof tone, But this isn't public. The agreement didn't say that I couldn't read it in the Hokage's office, now did it?" Shizen just replied in that scary sweet voice, "But you can't read when there are official guests in the office." Kakashi finally seemed to see the three. Once again, they all absorbed Liara and Gura's appearance without batting an eyelash. He just sighed and tucked the book away. He then turned to Naruto and commented, "I figured you'd find some sort of trouble, Naruto." Naruto's expression showed his annoyance as he exclaimed, "Why does everyone keep saying that?" Kakashi shrugged and looked at them and asked, "So what business is this about?" Tsunade shook her head and stood as she explained, "Too much for just one Kage. Naruto's going to summon the other Kages. He's already activated the seal. We were just waiting for you to arrive." Naruto then led the entire group out of the room and down a hall. Shepard and Gurus kept their distance from the ninja, but Liara was closer. Shepard could see Liara resisting the urge to ask them questions, but she also saw Liara sneaking peeks at the busty Hokage. Apparently Tsunade did too, as she turned and told her, "While this isn't the first time another woman would my feasts, it is the first time a blue woman has." Liara looked embarrassed. Asari couldn't blush like humans, but Liara would be if she could. Liara explained awkwardly, "My apologies. My species is monogendered. Although we resemble females, gender doesn't really matter to us. This concerns other species' genders as well." Tsunade's eyes narrowed as she muttered, "Your species, never mind. I'll wait for the meeting." The group continued in silence. Naruto held open a door, allowing everyone else to enter ahead of him. Shepard looked at the large room as she entered. It was a very large room. The walls were painted white. The only real decoration was the seating. There was a table shaped like half of a circle. There were 5 chairs spaced around the outside of the table. The half circle was arrayed around the kanji which they now knew meant shinobi. Before each of the seats were kanji for each element of the villages. Tsunade immediately sat down at the seat labeled with fire. Kakashi and Shizen stood behind her to each side. Naruto motioned for the three of them to stand back. Shepard then watched as Naruto bit his thumb, and went through the same hand motions he had when he had summoned the frog. She realized what he was doing just as he slammed his hands down on the floor. Smoke filled the room. Shepard also felt that suddenly the large room felt more crowded. She watched as the smoke cleared to show a crowd of people had appeared in the room. The people didn't seem to be confused. They all calmly walked to the seats, with others standing behind those seated like Kakashi and Shizen. Shepard watched as Naruto approached her. Naruto turned and pointed to each person as he announced, "Here, I'll introduce you. The large man there is the Raikage. The two standing behind him are Mabui, his assistant, and Darui, one of his bodyguards." Shepard scanned each one as he spoke of them. The Raikage was a huge black man. He looked to be as big as a bodybuilder. His muscles were clear even with the loose clothing the man was wearing. He also had platinum blonde hair, and some facial hair. Shepard also noticed that his left arm looked to be amputated. Darui looked slightly similar. He was also black, but Darui's hair was shaggier and pure white. He also had a larger nose, along with a lazy look about him. He was dressed in mainly black, with a white vest that had only one strap over his shoulder. He also had a sword so large that common sense told Shepard it was too heavy to be useful, but she realized common sense didn't apply to this race. Mabui was another woman who instantly made Shepard self-conscious about her looks. While not as dark-skinned as the other two, she was still rather tanned. She also had light gray hair that was almost white. It was pulled back into a bun, with only two bangs framing her face. She was wearing a green dress and pants, which left enough showing to reveal that Mabui had just as large a frieze as Tsunade. Naruto pointed to a different group. He continued, "That is Mei Terumi. She is the Mizukage. The short, timid kid next to him is Chojuro. Don't let his appearance fool you. He can get scary in battle. The stern man is Ao. He's sort of a buzzkill." Just seeing Mei got Shepard annoyed. How many women of this species looked like freaking gorgeous models? This woman just seemed to release an aura of sensuality. She had long auburn-colored hair which fell down her back. It also covered one of her eyes. She was wearing a blue dress with mesh under it. Once again, she also had large friezes, and the slit on the side of the dress showed her long legs. Chojuro was a short, timid-looking kid with pale blue hair and dark-rimmed glasses. He also had a large wrapped bundle on his back. Ao was a middle-aged man with his blue hair done up to look like a fin or mohawk. He also had an eye patch over one eye. He wore a long blue robe and had his ears pierced. Naruto continued and pointed to a new group. "That is Gaara. He's the Kazekage. Don't mind his stoic look. He's a really nice guy. The other two are his siblings, Temari and Kankuro." Gaara was a pale kid with hair the color of blood and dark rings around his eyes. He also had a gourd on his back that Shepard couldn't imagine anyone being able to lug around everywhere. He was wearing a mix of red and bluish gray. He also had a kanji carved into his forehead and no eyebrows. His eyes were an unsettling green color. The girl, who she assumed must be Temari, while pretty, didn't make Shepard as self-conscious. She had blonde hair which was done up into 4 ponytails. Her eyes were a darker green than her brother. She was wearing a black and red obi, and had a large metal thing positioned on her back. Shepard was starting to think that it was a fashion here to carry some heavy object on one's back. The other one was slightly more weird. He had a black bodysuit with a hood. He also had purple face paint on, and guess what, a large wrapped bundle on his back. She saw that he had brown hair under the hood as well. Naruto pointed to the last group and finished. "The girl is Kuratsuchi, the Tsukage. The older one beside her is her father, Kitsuchi. The other one is Akatsuchi." Kuratsuchi, Shepard immediately noticed, might be the most average-looking of all the girls she's seen so far. She wasn't ugly. In fact, she was rather attractive, but she seemed to be a tomboy. Not the cared-for beauty of Mei or Mabui. Kuratsuchi had short dark brown hair, and pink eyes without pupils, which Shepard had noticed several of the others had as well. Maybe she was finally starting to see the differences between this species and humans. She was dressed in mainly red. Her legs were mainly covered by mesh, only having short red shorts otherwise. She also had a longer cloth on the right side. She had a red shirt on, with only one side having a sleeve. It was covered by a dark brown vest. The other two made it clear that this species wasn't human. Both were large. Really large. They both also had large faces, with bulbous noses. Never had Shepard seen a human like those two. The room finally settled down. The Kages were all sitting with their aides behind them. The Reikage spoke first. "So why were we summoned here? We didn't have another meeting scheduled for 2 weeks." Tsunade jerked her head at Naruto before pointing out. "I don't know much more than you," asked Naruto. The group looked at Naruto, although several focused on Shepard and her companions. Naruto stepped forward and calmly explained. "Sorry for calling you all here, but this is actually very important. See, I was in the wilderness training when something happened. Well, a meteor hit me." Mei quickly asked. "Are you all right, Naruto? You're important to the entire world. It would be devastating if we lost you. Not to mention there are too few handsome men around for you to die." Shepard watched in amusement as Naruto blushed slightly. "Yep, that Mizukage just oozed sensuality." Naruto coughed before continuing. "As you can see, I'm okay. It was a close call, but I came out relatively unharmed. Except a change of clothes was destroyed. Anyways, it turned out it wasn't just a meteor. It was a ship of some sort." I looked inside and found these three. It took a while for them to wake up, but when they did, they told me some very important news. I thought you all needed to know. Gaara asked emotionlessly. "How important?" Naruto replied without hesitation. "Life-changing." Tsunade nodded before ordering. "Okay. Then let's have the people in question tell us about this news." Naruto stepped to the side and looked at Shepard. The instruction clear. Shepard gulped and stepped forward nervously to act as an ambassador for the entire council. Naruto watched intently as Shepard typed some buttons into that orange tool on her arm. He was anxious to get more details now. He had taken the day to accept what she had told him before, but now he needed more answers. The Kages would be shocked and confused. He had to be prepared to help them. Shepard finally straightened before announcing. "I am Commander Jane Shepard of the Human Alliance. Commanding Officer of the SSV Normandy, and Spectre of the Council. This also makes me the official ambassador to your planet, speaking on behalf of the Council. First, I shall brief you on the entire situation you are unaware of." Shepard took a deep breath before continuing. "The Milky Way galaxy is controlled by a galactic-wide civilization. Headed by the Council, the civilization includes many different species which have achieved spaceflight. Although we rule the galaxy is a large space. Currently, only 1% of stars have been surveyed. We are constantly exploring further. Approximately 6 days ago, an explorative probe found this solar system. It found this planet, and further scans showed life. I, as a Spectre, was sent to inspect to see if any sentient life had developed. Unfortunately, our shuttle experienced a powerful electromagnetic field which escaped our scans. It shut off the shuttle systems, and we subsequently crashed. We woke up to find us under the care of Naruto." The group remained ominously silent. Naruto could tell Shepard was uncomfortable. She probably expected disbelief, or yelling. Not a silent acceptance. Naruto had, though. They were ninja. They readily believed the impossible could be done. They would instead react instantly to any threat, which Shepard had inadvertently stated. Naruto could see Shepard was feeling nervous. She would be even more nervous as she knew she could be killed within seconds if any of these people decided to. It was Gaara who spoke first. He spoke in a firm voice of a leader who felt threatened. "You said that your civilization ruled the galaxy. Is that meant to be a threat against our people's independence and autonomy?" Naruto watched Shepard blink before replying without thinking. "Of course not." Shepard shook her head at the careless thought. Naruto had to fight back a grin as she straightened and explained in slight embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I phrased that wrong. I'm a soldier, not a politician. I would prefer to leave this up to someone who knows how to speak better, but let me try to explain my purpose better. The Galactic Council is the major power in the galaxy, but they don't rule the galaxy. There are currently species and groups who choose to live separately from the Council authority. The Council is simply a gathering of different species with the intent to promote interspecies cooperation and prevent galactic wars. While certain species hold greater power, you could choose to have nothing to do with it. Unless you threaten Citadel space, you would most likely be left alone. Naruto felt the tension in the room drop slightly. They were still wary, but at least none were on the verge of killing the aliens. Shepard seemed to have felt it, and continued more confidently. I was able to contact the Council earlier. They know of my discovery here, and have sent me an offer I'm supposed to give to you. She reactivated her Omni tool before continuing. On behalf of the Council, I am supposed to relay to you this offer. The Council will acknowledge that this planet is occupied by your species. Council law dictates that the Council cannot initiate any military actions against a sentient species without sufficient cause. So you could continue with your lives without any change from the Council. They also offer you a different choice too. The Council wishes to establish official relations with your species. This would include exchange of technology, opening of trade relations, and possible inclusion in Citadel space. If you accept the opening of diplomatic channels, two different options are available to you. Either you can send a representative of your race aboard my ship to come and negotiate with the Council in person, or the Council can send their own ambassador to this planet. The orange tool disappeared and Shepard straightened. Momentarily done. Naruto looked at everyone in the room, judging how they were reacting. Naruto felt that they were split over what to do. Knowing that they needed more answers before deciding, Naruto turned to Shepard and asked, "Can you tell us more about this galactic civilization and council?" Shepard nodded, but seemed confused on how to start. She finally motioned for Liara and Geras to step forward. She then turned and explained, "I can tell you about the other species under the council. Liara here is an Asari. They were the first species to find the Citadel and achieve spaceflight about 3,000 years ago. They are a monogendered race from the planet Thesha. They have a seat on the council. Geras is a Turian, a militant race from the planet Palaven. They joined the council about 1,400 years ago after helping to stop a galactic war. They provide the main peacekeeping forces. My species are humans. Despite looking like it, we are from different species. We only became part of Citadel space under 30 years ago. We fought with the Turians briefly before the Council negotiated a ceasefire. We don't have a seat on the Council, only an embassy." She typed on her orange tool before producing a hologram of a lizard-like creature before continuing. "The Solarians. They discovered the Citadel 40 years after the Asari. They hold the other Council seat. They are a very scientifically minded people with short lifespans. There are many others. The Elcor, Volus, Drell, and Hanner. There are other species not with the Council as well. The Quarians, Krogan, Bataranes, and others, but I can't explain them all to you." Tsunade now asked, "What do you mean a Council seat?" Shepard nodded before explaining. "The Council is the ultimate power in Citadel space, but only 3 species currently have a seat on it. To get a seat on the Council, a species must perform a great deed for Citadel space. The Asari and Solarians formed it, and the Turians stopped the Krogan during the Krogan rebellions. If a species is part of Citadel space, but doesn't have a seat on the Council, they have an embassy on the Citadel. This makes them an associate member. Their ambassadors can bring issues to the Council, but don't have influence on the final decisions." May was the one who now asked, "What is this Citadel you have mentioned?" Naruto looked to Shepard, also curious on this issue. Shepard used her tool to change the hologram to show a weirdly shaped ship or something. She then explained, "The Citadel is a giant space station constructed by the extinct Protheans over 50,000 years ago. It is almost 45 kilometers in length and hosts a population of over 13 million. It is the center of galactic society." I spoke angrily. "So if we joined we would have to follow your laws, but wouldn't even get a say in decision-making? That's preposterous." Shepard replied anxiously, You don't have to become part of Citadel's space. You can simply open tradeways or likewise. If you joined, however, you would officially be under the protection of the Council. As I said, I'm not a politician. Here, you can take one of our Omni tools. It is standard procedure to carry an extra. An Omni tool is a multi-purpose tool with various functions. I am uploading a codex to it. A codex is basically an encyclopedia of the galaxy. You can research topics you want to know about while making your decision. My pilot estimates that it will take several days to modify a ship to withstand your planet's electromagnetic field. Naruto grabbed the Omni tool and handed it to Tsunade. Tsunade handed it to Shizen before claiming, "I'll send it to Shiho for research. Her and Shikamaru can look it over. I'll have them draft a report on the info and given to all of you in several hours. Until then, I think we all need time to think this over. You all can stay in your usual residences. Naruto, you are to escort the aliens around Konoha and supervise them. Until then, I think everyone will agree this meeting is done." Naruto nodded. They had all received a lot of information, and they needed time to think on it. Naruto had also already interacted with the aliens, so it was clear why he was in charge of supervising them. He turned to the trio as the entire group stood up. He motioned for them to follow him. He didn't speak till they were outside the building. He turned to see the three of them trying to keep up with him. He muttered, "Sorry." Liara quickly asked, "Why are you so anxious to leave?" Naruto shrugged before explaining, "I just wanted to get you all out of there. The meeting could have gone better, and so it was best to give them time to think." Geras was the one who spoke up. "What do you mean it didn't go well? After that rough beginning, I thought it went well." Naruto shook his head as he claimed, "I'm better at reading ninjas' body language. The Raikage just expressed their thoughts. They all don't find the proposition of following others' laws too appealing." Shepard quickly debated, "I thought I told them that it wasn't like that." Naruto sighed before he told them, "Yes, but they didn't believe you. Although this will definitely spark a change, no matter their decision, even I find what you say difficult to believe. You expect us to believe that your council will give us technology if we decide to not follow their laws, and if they did, they would have to expect to gain something in return. No, we either follow their laws, or have nothing to do with your species." Naruto saw the trio looking confused and slightly offended. He waved his hand at them carelessly as he claimed, "Don't worry. I think we should accept the offer. I'm just telling you why they might be suspicious." Shepard now asked curiously, "You want them to agree? Why? I thought you just said you can see why they would be suspicious." Naruto just gave them a huge grin as he declared, "I said I understand what they think. I don't have to agree with it." The trio seemed to be happy about his declaration. Naruto turned away as he added, "Plus, it sounds fun. Having a whole galaxy to explore." Shepard slapped her face in exasperation before remarking, "I see why everyone figured you'd find some trouble. You'd fight a Krogan for kicks." Naruto immediately asked with stars in his eyes, "What is a Krogan? Are they tough? Can I fight one?" He stopped when he saw Shepard thought he was serious. He now seriously told them, "Don't worry. I'll send clones to talk to them all and try to convince them. I'll wait for Shiho and Shikamaru to send out that report. Even I agree we should get more information before making a decision." Liara quickly asked, "Clones? What do you mean?" Naruto sighed before explaining, "A technique. I can create solid clones of myself. They are similar in every way." Geras now commented, "Normally I'd say that is impossible, but I really don't want to be proven wrong. Your species doesn't seem to follow common sense." Naruto gave a shit-eating grin before saying loudly, "Good choice." Shepard was impressed by their accommodations. They were given a suite in a luxurious hotel Naruto explained was built for the Kages several years ago, and other visiting officials. The suite had 3 beds, a kitchen, and a large bathroom with a shower. There was even the best TVs the planet had, with channels provided using radio waves. Shepard looked at Naruto, who was currently looking out the window. Geras was laying down on one of the beds due to his wound hurting, and Liara was in the bathroom. She finally asked, What are you looking at, Naruto? Naruto looked at her before saying sadly. Just watching the village. Shepard knew this was a sore subject, but was too curious not to ask. So why did you leave? You said this was your village? Why would you leave home? Naruto looked at her expressionlessly for several seconds. He finally shrugged before claiming. The Kages decided I was too powerful to remain part of a single village. Otherwise it would tip the balance of power. Geras turned over before asking. How can one person be so powerful that he can't even be part of a village? Naruto sighed and walked over and sat down in one of the available chairs. He looked at them before he said to himself. I guess it's time I told you a little more about this world. It is only fair, considering that you gave us your codex thingy. Shepard sat down in a chair opposite him in curiosity. She saw that Liara had also come back, and was leaning against one of the walls. She turned back to Naruto and asked, What do you mean? Naruto looked at them with an intensity that made Shepard realize that Naruto was very dangerous. She had realized it on some level all along, but it wasn't till now that she realized that she wouldn't want to fight Naruto in any way. She would not win. Naruto spoke up. About the power of ninjas. I'm assuming that you are all basically civilians. Trained soldiers, but without chakra. Even our civilians don't realize the damage that we can inflict using chakra. Until I set it straight, you all won't understand. Shepard held out a hand to stop Geras from protesting his words. Naruto nodded at her in appreciation. He took a deep breath before he began. I'll start from the very beginning. As in, the very beginning. Legend tells us that a monster used to wander the land. He gave off an energy so foul and full of hatred that all life died around it. This continued for centuries before a man finally confronted the monster. A priest. The priest had been exposed to the energy the monster gave off as a baby. Instead of dying, he adapted to it. His eyes changed to allow him many abilities, including the ability to see the energy. Using these eyes, the priest had discovered how to wield the same sort of energy as the monster. He then confronted the monster, but the beast was of unimaginable power. He couldn't defeat it. Instead, he did the only thing he could. He sealed the energy of the monster inside of himself. Doing this, he was able to stop it. He used that energy to create a cage for the monster's body, and then sent it into the sky itself. This cage became the moon. Geras now asked scornfully, Are you kidding? You expect us to believe this? Moons are formed from small bodies which are captured in the gravity of a planet. They aren't cages for monsters. Naruto stared at Geras. Shepard could feel the anger he was giving off. Shepard turned to Geras and informed him a little too harshly. Geras, don't be rude. Listen to his story. Geras seemed annoyed, but Naruto nodded in thanks at Shepard. He then continued. So the priest had rid the world of the monster. He then spent years spreading peace, and teaching others the way to wield the energy. This energy is chakra. We now know the priest by the moniker of the Sage of Six Paths. Those he taught became the first ninjas. Peace reigned for a time, but the sage knew it was only temporary. The beast was captured, not defeated. Chakra is the combination of energy from the body and the mind. So the mind of the beast still remained in the energy sealed in his body. He couldn't kill it before, and he couldn't destroy it after it was sealed either. He knew that when he died, the energy would be released, and it was so powerful that the energy could form a new body. So he decided to change the energy instead. He performed a jutsu to split the energy into 9 different bodies. These became the tailed beasts. Each one had an increasing level of tails. Although they all came from the same source, they were basically children which matured. Thousands of years passed, and the tailed beast grew up and changed in power. Despite common belief, the number of tails didn't determine the power of the tailed beast. There was Shikaku, the 1 tail. Nibi, the 2 tails. Sanbai, the 3 tails. Yobi, the 4 tails. Gobi, the 5 tails. Rokubi, the 6 tails. Nanabai, the 7 tails. Hachibi, the 8 tails. And the strongest by far, Kyubi, the 9 tails. The original monster also became referred to as the 10 tails. The problem was the pure power of the tailed beasts, and the precedent the sage had created by sealing one into his body. Ninjas started sealing the beasts into their bodies to gain power. These were called Jinchuriki, or power of the human sacrifice. They viewed the tailed beasts as tools to gain power, and this changed the tailed beasts. They started to hate us. They started attacking ninjas. This in turn caused ninjas to believe the tailed beasts were mindless monsters of destruction. This started a cycle between ninjas and them. The tailed beasts cannot be destroyed. Their bodies are pure constructs of chakra. Even when their Jinchuriki dies, the tailed beasts could reform. Their hatred of us made them attack us when they were free, and when they attacked us, we had to seal them to stop them. The more we sealed them, the more they hate us. Understand what this causes. Liara was the one who remarked, "It means constant war." Naruto nodded before continuing. And there was constant war anyways. Ninjas split into clans. For thousands of years they were constantly warring, with the tailed beasts sometimes attacking one. This changed after the formation of the hidden villages. I told you it happened about a century ago. It all centered around Konoha. Konoha was formed by two powerful clans combining their power. The Senju and Uchiha. Both were headed by the most powerful ninjas of their era. Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. These two were unique for their powerful bloodlines. Hashirama could control trees, and Madara had the Sharingan. Both gave them the ability to control the tailed beasts. They used this to their advantage. With the villages starting, it made the tailed beasts even more of a threat. Individual clans could run from them, and it didn't matter if one clan was eliminated anyways. There were always more. But the establishment of Konoha caused the same to happen elsewhere. The hidden villages formed. With the clans together and creating stationary villages instead of roaming bands, it would allow the tailed beasts to attack and cause even more damage. So Hashirama used his ability to control the tailed beasts. He also wanted peace, so he distributed them among the villages like objects. He hoped that each village having the power of a tailed beast would eliminate war. Gurus nodded as he commented, "Seems like a good idea. That's how the council operates. No one starts a war because they'll reply in overwhelming force in retaliation. Total war. That's how the Turians have stopped many wars from happening. As long as the council stays the strongest in the galaxy, no one will dare start a war with them." Naruto nodded before continuing solemnly. Unfortunately, ninjas were trained for war. The hidden villages weren't afraid of suffering casualties, but that is later. Because of this, Hashirama eventually became Hokage, causing Madara to defect. Knowing he couldn't defeat the entire village of Konoha by himself, Madara decided to use the last free-tailed beast. The Kyuubi. Shepard now asked to clarify. "I thought all the tailed beasts were used in sealing. Why not the Kyuubi?" Naruto looked at her as he explained. "I told you the Kyuubi was the strongest tailed beast. No one wanted to face it. Only one man was reported to have tried to control the Kyuubi before that. The eldest son of the Sage of Six Paths. Despite having the eyes of the sage, he failed. It set a bad precedent. Plus, just to help you picture it, Kyuubi was the largest tailed beast by far. All of them were gigantic, but the Kyuubi originally stood over mountains. No ninja was willing to face it. Until Madara. Madara had the Sharingan, the bloodline originating from the sages himself. By unlocking a forbidden form of it, he managed to do the impossible. He was able to control the Kyuubi. He then used it to face down Hashirama and his wife, Mito Uzumaki. Their battle created a huge valley. Madara was defeated even with the Kyuubi. Hashirama used his bloodline to weaken the Kyuubi enough for Hashirama's wife to seal it into herself. She became the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi in history. The two then defeated Madara. Hashirama died from his injuries later. Shepard now asked, "While this is really fascinating, why are you telling us this?" Liara looked at Shepard, scandalized, before saying excitedly, "It is more than fascinating. I've never heard of such comprehensive legends, and this one is real." Naruto smiled at Liara before he announced, "While I'm glad you like the story, it actually has a different purpose. The tailed beast have caused the last great war, and defined my life. My mother was the second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. When she gave birth to me, The seal weakened. It allowed someone to attack and release the Kyuubi in the middle of Konoha. The damage this caused is indescribable. Let me show you guys. Shepard frowned in confusion. She then watched as Naruto's left eye changed. It went from a violet to a blood red with a weird design in the middle. Shepard couldn't look away. She heard Naruto whisper from within her mind itself. Sharingan. Then came possibly the most terrifying time of Shepard's life. She had seen her family and friends killed by slavers when she was a kid, but that was nothing compared to this. She saw a vision, like that she had just experienced on Eden Prime. No, this was different. She couldn't truly understand the Eden Prime vision. This one, she felt the terror, the pain, the hatred. She watched as a gigantic monster stood over the entire village of Konoha. Its 9 tails were whipping through the air. She felt the hatred it was exuding. Its desire to kill everything. For everything to be consumed in fire. Then it was over. Shepard slumped back into her seat, completely drained from that vision. She saw Liara slump to the floor and Geras laid down on the bed. So they had seen it too. She turned to Naruto, whose eye had returned to normal. Naruto quickly said in an apologetic voice, "I'm sorry for showing you that. I just needed to express on you how powerful and devastating the Kyuubi was. Hearing it is one thing. Experiencing it is..." Shepard nodded as she gasped out, "So much different." Naruto nodded sadly before continuing. The attack had come out of nowhere. Konoha wasn't prepared. Konoha was devastated. The 4th Hokage managed to seal the Kyuubi into a child. He sealed it into his own son. The 4th and his wife died in the attack from sealing it. Liara raised her hands to her mouth as she gasped out, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Naruto." Shepard looked in confusion at Liara before turning back to Naruto. Shepard was immediately struck silent. The cheerful Naruto looked so forlorn. She immediately understood what Liara had picked up. Naruto nodded before continuing sadly. "Yes. I was the child used to seal the Kyuubi. It was difficult. My parentage was kept a secret. My father had made lots of enemies in the Third World War. They wouldn't have hesitated to kill me in revenge, but it was known I was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. You saw what the attack was like. Everyone was scared. They feared me. Feared what I held. Thought I was simply the Kyuubi put into a weak child's body. It was hard to say the least. I grew up dealing with hatred and being ostracized. I didn't even know about the Kyuubi until I was 13. Liara immediately whispered, "It must have been terrible." Naruto shrugged before replying quickly, "Yes, but I got through it. Many Jinchuriki were feared. We were treated as tools of war. A group came around that wanted to use that power. They were called Akatsuki. They set out to capture all the bijou and use them to rule the world. It was led in secret by a man who had a different plan. He had the Sharingan. He hoped to capture all the bijou and combine them back into the 10 tails. He would then seal it into himself, and use its power to cast an illusion of unprecedented power. He was going to use the moon to reflect the illusion over the entire planet. He was doing this under the belief that the only way to create peace was for him to control everyone. The villages united to stop him. While our army fought his artificially created one, I confronted him with the last other remaining Jinchuriki left. The fight was epic and horrible. He used the other bijou against us, eventually even reviving the 10 tails. We were fighting a losing fight from the beginning." Shepard couldn't resist asking, "So how did you beat him?" Naruto smiled before asking, "I told you that ninjas thought the bijou were mindless beasts, right? I can testify that this was wrong. They had minds. They simply hated ninjas for treating them like tools. You want to know how I won? I became friends with them all." Shepard blinked in shock before asking, "What?" Naruto just had a serene smile on his face as he repeated aloud, "Shikaku, Matatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Saiken, Chome, Gyuki, and Kurama, those were their names. Their real names!" Shepard tried to imagine becoming friends with the vicious monster from her vision. She felt faintly sick to her stomach. She asked in disbelief, "Impossible. That thing. That thing was pure evil. It deserved to be destroyed, not befriended. Shepard suddenly saw herself die in dozens of different ways. It was just as terrifying as the other vision. She watched in pure fear as she saw Naruto truly angry for the first time. She was helpless as he stood up and angrily yelled. No, he wasn't. He wasn't evil. He was a person, just like you and me. His appearance or power shouldn't change that. It is thoughts like that that cause conflict in this world. If we can't accept others' faults, how can peace ever be achieved? Shepard had to hold back tears as she whispered, I'm sorry. Naruto stopped and took several deep breaths, as his limbs shook in anger. He finally relaxed. He sat down as he answered in an apologetic tone. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have reacted like that. You aren't the only one that thought that. I just don't like people disrespecting Kurama's memory. Liara recovered the fastest of the three due to her overwhelming curiosity. I thought that the bijou couldn't be killed. You spoke in past tense about the 9 tails. Naruto nodded before trying to explain awkwardly. They couldn't be killed. Their energy was always regenerating, but it could be remodeled. Just like how the sage split the 10 tails up into 9. The bijou decided to use the remnants of their will within the revived 10 tails to combine their chakra and give it to someone else, despite it basically being their death. Shepard finally connected all the dots. She looked at Naruto in awe, disbelief, and slight fear as she whispered. You said you beat the man by befriending the bijou. They gave you their chakra. Naruto nodded before announcing. Yep. I helped cure the bijou of their hatred, and so they entrusted me with their power, and the dream of their father, the sage himself. To create peace. I stopped being a Jinchuriki. I am the 10 tails, with power at my disposal to destroy everything. So I'm feared for my power just as much I am loved for stopping the war. Geras was the one who asked. So how powerful are you? Naruto shook his head before saying simply. Pray you never need to find out. Because the only time I'll ever use all of my power is if the entire fate of the galaxy rests on my shoulders. Shepard had the ominous feeling that Naruto's power was going to be vital sometime in the future. Naruto called out in a bored voice. Geez, Shepard, Liara. Are you done yet? When the two called back a negative, Geras shook his head before remarking. Geez, it seems females' love of primping extends beyond a single species. Naruto nodded and muttered in an annoyed voice. I know. I never got why kunoichi spent so much time on their looks. I mean, we're soldiers for heaven's sake. Yet they always have to look like models or something. Geras nodded and said, Amen to that. Naruto looked out the window in annoyance. After their talk yesterday, he had gotten them all to go to sleep. He had spent the entire night meditating on the feelings he had woken up during the talk, trying to come to deal with them. Yet when he woke them up to give them a brief tour of the village, he somehow found himself having to spend 2 hours waiting for Liara and Shepard to get ready. Liara didn't even have hair to take care of. It took another 10 minutes for them to be ready. Shepard spoke as she opened the door. It's your fault, Naruto. If it wasn't for your Kages looking so good, we wouldn't have to feel the need to measure up. Naruto looked at the two as they left the bathroom. He had gotten them some different clothing since all they had was their armor. Liara seemed to have gone a traditional route, wearing a fancy kimono. The edges were white, and it had a mixture of white and pink designs over it. She also seemed to have applied some makeup. Her face seemed oddly shiny and had some glitter around her eyes and lips. It clearly highlighted the natural beauty already present. Shepard seemed to have gone for a slightly different look. She seemed to be wearing the more ninja-like clothes Naruto had given them. She was wearing a kimono-style blouse with short sleeves. Under the blouse was a shirt of mesh. The blouse was teal with pink edges. She was wearing dark blue pants as well. The clothing was slightly familiar to Tsunade's. She also had a bit of makeup on. Some light red lipstick, and dark eyeshadow that highlighted her green eyes. Her dark red hair just looked to be combed. Both of them looked good. Naruto tilted his head before asking, What do you mean? Shepard gave him a stink eye as she stated, Like you don't realize. Practically every woman we saw yesterday was gorgeous. Liara naturally wants to look her best since she finds them all attractive, and I don't want to be the ugly one in the bunch. Naruto shrugged as he told them all. Most kunoichi are like that. I don't think I've ever seen an ugly one in the bunch. It has to do with chakra permeating our bodies and cleansing it of all contaminants or something. It isn't quite as clear for guys. Our civilians are all far more normal though. Shepard gave him a look that made it clear she didn't believe him. He ignored her and stood and stretched. He then turned to them and announced excitedly. Now your special premium tour of Konoha is ready to begin, courtesy of Uzumaki Naruto. He then slowly walked them through the town, showing them through the town. He showed them some of the more prominent shops and sights. It was Liara who asked several hours later. Are you sure this is okay, Naruto? If your leaders decide that they don't want to join the galactic community, showing Geras and I around might cause problems. Naruto just laughed before exclaiming. Don't worry. My clones did pretty good work last night. The Kages are coming around. Only the Raikage is still against it, but he trusts my opinion enough to give it a chance. The information you gave us yesterday also helped. The reports were sent around yesterday, and were read before night was even fallen. Liara looked surprised as she asked. Really, your scientists managed to report all the information in an Omni-tool in several hours? That's impressive. Naruto just grinned as he told them. Yeah, Shikamaru and Shiho are really impressive. Shiho might be kinda awkward, but she is good with technology and figuring things out. Shikamaru might very well be the smartest kid in the world too. Those two can figure anything out. Liara nodded before saying earnestly. I'd like to meet them then. If they can adapt to our technology so fast, then they must be very intelligent. Naruto now put on a huge grin before he stepped in front of them. He quickly announced to them. Don't worry. You'll be meeting them at lunch. He saw Shepard frown and ask. What do you mean? Naruto's smile didn't falter as he told them. Whenever I'm in town, I have lunch with my old friends. I sent clones to them yesterday night to tell them. We'll be having a picnic at the park. Naruto saw their mixed reactions. It seemed that both Shepard and Geras didn't really know how to react, while Liara now looked excited. He was confident now that he had all of them pegged. Shepard and Geras were both trained soldiers. That much was obvious. Geras seemed to be slightly sharper and more suspicious than Shepard, but he deferred to Shepard on basically everything. So Shepard must have some leadership skills that she hadn't been able to display yet. Liara was completely different though. She lacked the professional air of the other two. In fact, she seemed to be slightly more childish in some way, although Naruto also detected quite a bit of intelligence from how quickly she caught on to some things. Being here was clearly exciting for her, so he assumed she was a scholar or explorer. Yet Naruto couldn't figure out why she would be on a military ship with Shepard. Although she might have been sent specifically for this mission by their council, Naruto could tell the two were at least slightly familiar with each other. Naruto felt like something was going on here that they hadn't told him about yet. None of this showed on his face though. He was an expert at keeping smiling when he wanted to. He now told them. They should start arriving in an hour or so, but we're meeting someone else first. Shepard turned her head to ask. Who? Naruto just smiled and tapped the side of his nose as he said smugly. That would be telling. Shepard turned away angrily, causing Naruto to laugh. It only took them several minutes to reach the park. It wasn't till Naruto saw the park that he realized how nice of a day it was. There was something about looking at grass and trees that made one look at everything else about the day. Buildings just didn't convey the same feeling of serenity. The sky was cloudless, with the sun shining proudly. There was also only a gentle breeze stirring the surrounding area. If there was one thing that Naruto liked about being exiled, it was all the time he spent in nature. Since he became a sage, he never felt at peace except surrounded by nature. Maybe that was why Jiraiya spent so much time traveling. His calm was interrupted by a loud voice yelling in excitement. Daddy! Naruto grinned as he crouched down to catch the small bundle flying at him. He laughed as he spun the child around, his laugh being joined by that of the child. He finally stopped spinning and held the child at arm's distance. He immediately joked in a happy voice. Geez! Getting heavy there, squirt. The kid puffed up in pride while protesting at the same time. Hey, I'm not a squirt. Naruto set the kid down as he replied jokingly. Sure you aren't, squirt. The kid proceeded to beat on Naruto's leg cutely. Who is this, Naruto? Naruto turned to see the three looking at the child in confusion and disbelief. He just grinned and crouched down behind the child with his hands on the child's shoulders and announced loudly. This is my son, Kurama Uzumaki Hyuga. Naruto grinned in pride as the three showed complete shock as they looked at Kurama. No doubt they could see the resemblance. Kurama looked a lot like him. He had his spiky blonde hair, and his face was shaped like Naruto's. The only trait he inherited from his mother was his eyes. His eyes were large and without pupils, distinctive of the inactivated Byakugan. The color was even slightly similar to his. Kurama's eyes were a very light blue. Otherwise he was a typical 2-year-old kid. Even if Naruto constantly teased him on being short. Geras was the one who exclaimed, Are you kidding me? You're what, 19 years old? How could you already have a kid that age? Naruto frowned slightly as he answered. What's wrong with that? I mean, sure, we were slightly young, but it isn't that unusual for ninjas. We tend to live shorter lives. We don't have time to wait till we're 30 or 40 like civilians. Geras immediately protested. No way. That kid must be 6 or 7. That would mean you were like 13. Naruto bluntly stated. Kurama isn't even 2 years old. The three were shocked speechless, allowing his son to spin around and declare triumphantly. See? I'm not tiny. They thought I was 6. Naruto shook his head before teasing everyone present. They're just silly little aliens, Kurama. They don't know enough to realize that you are a squirt. Kurama puffed his cheeks out angrily. Liara interrupted by asking uncertainly. Is he really only 2, Naruto? Naruto nodded before asking. Yeah. Why? What are your 2-year-olds like? Shepard was the one who claimed with a deadpan expression. Just learning their first words and taking their first steps. Naruto blinked in surprise before asking. You're kidding, right? When it was clear the three weren't, Naruto thought out loud. Wow. So if Kurama is currently at a stage similar to your 6-year-olds, we must age far faster. Kakashi-sensei actually became a genin at 5, and a chunin at 6. That meant he was technically an adult in our society. There is generally a period of several years where we stop growing physically, around 8 to 13, but we can be quite intelligent and physically mature by that age. It must have been an adaptation to the constant war. Age quickly to a point where we are able to fight. Naruto was stopped from thinking more on it by someone speaking in a soft voice. Hello, Naruto. Naruto turned around to say softly in return. Hi, Hinata. Hinata was standing demurely about 10 steps away. Naruto once again had to comment to himself how gorgeous Hinata was. He had always ignored most girls as a kid, besides Sakura, that he had never really noticed Hinata. Now, everyone noticed Hinata. Like many kunoichi, motherhood made them even more gorgeous. Hinata still had her hair long, although it was currently tied into a bun in the back, while letting multiple strands fall down around her face. Her face was pale and blemish-free, begging to be touched. Even her eyes with the hint of lavender were attractive. Also, giving birth had only affected Hinata in a good way. Her bust had grown even larger, and her hips had rounded out nicely. Her waist was still tiny though, and her legs were still firm and toned. Overall, as corny as it sounded, she had the body of a goddess. Only people like Tsunade, Mei, and Mabui could compare. She still felt insecure enough to always cover up though. She wore similar clothes to what she had after his training trip. Still effectively covering everything. Still, that was part of her charm. Naruto asked affectionately, How are you doing, Hinata? Hinata nodded and gave a smile as she answered. As well as can be expected. I'm getting on. Kurama is doing fine as well. Naruto nodded eagerly and scuffed up Kurama's hair as he declared. I see that. Growing up fast. Well, not vertically, but that isn't your fault. Once again, Kurama started to pound cutely on his leg. Naruto watched as Hinata giggled before he motioned for her to approach. When she did, he turned and presented. Hinata, these are the guests I told you about. The redhead is Shepherd, blue skin is Liara, and scaly is Geras. You three, this is Hinata Hyuga, the mother of Kurama. Shepherd watched calmly as Naruto and Geras played with Kurama. Geras taking part was a surprise, but Shepherd hadn't really known him for that long. Finding out he had a playful side and love of kids wasn't too unbelievable. Kurama also quickly developed a fondness of Geras as well. Finally finding their play getting boring, Shepherd turned to look at Hinata again. Just looking at her made Shepherd glad she had spent so long on her own looks that morning. Hinata was between Shepherd and Liara, all three of them sitting on the ground. Shepherd was trying to be polite, but watching the serene and loving expression on Hinata's face as she watched Naruto and Kurama finally made her curiosity win. She questioned, "So how did you and Naruto have Kurama? Are you guys still in a relationship?" Hinata looked at her with a small smile as she replied calmly, "I've always loved Naruto. Ever since I was a kid. After the war, I decided to act. I had confessed to him several months before, but things had been so hectic nothing had happened afterwards. We got together. It only lasted about a year, but it was the happiest time of my life. We found out about Kurama about halfway through. We broke up just before Kurama was born though, so we aren't together anymore." Displaying her greatest feat of strength ever, Shepherd didn't ask the obvious question. Luckily, Liara did. "Why?" When Hinata's face showed a little bit of pain, Liara quickly continued, "I'm sorry if that is too personal. It's just that Naruto doesn't seem like the type of person to leave his child, and you clearly were happy in the relationship. I just don't get why it stopped." Hinata waited a few moments before saying, "It is fine. Almost everyone knows why. I might as well tell you." Hinata took a deep breath before continuing, "I love Naruto. Of that, there is no question. When I was a girl, he was my source of strength. He was everything I wanted to be. I grew up with Naruto as the center of my universe. That has never changed, but I did gain some perspective when we started dating. For all my love, I couldn't repay Naruto for all the happiness he gave me during that time. Naruto is so strong, and I basically was a parasite. Always using him for strength and support. I couldn't do the same for him though. It just wasn't fair that he had to settle for me." Liara quickly protested. "Everyone feels that way though when they are in love. That their partner deserves better." Hinata shook her head sadly before continuing. "Naruto told me the same thing, but this was different. Naruto gave me more happiness than I had ever felt before, but it wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to rely on Naruto for happiness. I wanted to make my own happiness. To do that, I had to be in a relationship where I provided just as much support and love as I receive." Shepherd's eyebrows scrunched up in confusion. Finally she asked, "I'm sorry, but I just don't understand." Hinata hugged her legs and set her head on her knees as she answered sadly, "I don't even understand sometimes. I have Kurama, who is the only reason I haven't gone crawling back to Naruto, and I have even started a different relationship with my teammate Shino. He helps me, and I can help him. That is what I couldn't do with Naruto. I received, but could never give back. Yet, nothing seems to have changed. I still love Naruto more than the world itself, and our feelings always overcome us when he's in Konoha. It might be wrong to say we aren't in a relationship. If anything, I think it would be most accurate to say I'm in 2 relationships." Shepherd coughed in shock when she heard that. Finally she asked, "What? And they are fine with that?" Hinata looked slightly confused by Shepherd's response as she claimed, "Well, yeah. Shino is part of the Aburame clan. They tend to think about things differently than others. When I told him he might always be second to Naruto and Kurama, he said that it was natural. I believe his exact words were in nature, the larvae are always more important than the workers, and Naruto is comparable to a queen. The entire hive revolves around it, and is subject to its desires." Shepherd waited several moments before asking, "And what the hell does that mean?" Hinata giggled before explaining, "Sorry. I've gotten used to how he phrases stuff. The Aburame clan uses hives of bugs implanted into their bodies at birth to battle. In their opinions, bugs are the most effective creatures in the world at surviving and continuing on to the next generation. What they do obviously must be the right thing to do. They seem to not be human in a way. Either they don't feel emotions like jealousy and anger or they ignore it. So Shino thought it completely natural that I would care about Kurama more than him, and that I would love Naruto in a way he could never compete. And Naruto, well, he is too nice. Anything that makes me happy, he would support without any hard feelings. Plus, it isn't that unusual an arrangement. Shepard sighed and put her face into her hands as she groaned. So this planet supports polygamy too? Hinata giggled before replying. Not polygamy, really. It is just a ninja tradition. We put our lives on the line, and we very well might die any day. Doing what is necessary to achieve happiness during that time is obvious. Marriage is only really practiced in the clans. Other than that, we are in as many relationships for as long as it appeals to us. Partners don't care because we want each other to be happy. Usually we settle down with one partner if we have children or live to be a certain age. It is a slightly old and dated tradition from the ninja clan era, where many more ninjas died at a younger age. It isn't put into practice that often anymore, but we grow up with that mindset, so it still applies in the rare circumstances where it happens. Like Ciare or a situation like mine. Shepard tilted her head before repeating. Ciare? Hinata nodded before explaining. Clan Restoration Act. Ninja clans usually have bloodlines or techniques specific to their members, so if a clan is ever down to 1 or 2 members, it is important the clan is restored. They are able to marry multiple people. It is very rare. Currently, I believe only 2 people in Konoha qualify. Shepard immediately asked. Who? Hinata jerked her head in Naruto's direction. After Shepard gasped from the implications, Hinata continued. Naruto is the last of the Uzumaki clan. They are renowned for their vitality and chakra reserves. Not to mention seals. The other one is Uchiha Sasuke, but he has decided to only take one wife. Shepard shook her head in disbelief at the notion of Naruto taking multiple wives. Sure, he was a pervert around Tsunade, but he seemed a little too innocent for that. Not to mention Shepard found the idea of anyone taking multiple wives as unrealistic. Sure, divorces happen and people remarry, but polygamy just seems so weird. She finally expressed it by stating, I find the idea of Naruto finding multiple girls willing to share him as fanciful. Hinata gave her a weird look before stating, Really? I can think of at least 10 girls off the top of my head who would be willing. Shepard immediately protested. What? No way. Hinata nodded with a weird determination, as if defending Naruto was important to her. Yeah. Naruto is really popular. He even has twins with a priestess in Demon Country. Shepard deadpanned. So he has even more kids. Hinata nodded before informing her. Yeah. He protected a priestess several years ago. Afterwards she asked him to father her kids because she wasn't allowed to marry. A boy and a girl. Teruho and Miroku, the name of her mother and a friend, I think. Shepard put her head in her hands as she tried to grasp that idea. She heard Liara speak though. Interesting. The Asari system is rather similar to this. Since we live such long lives, taking only one mate doesn't appeal to most Asari. Other species also have much shorter lives, so we have to deal with our mates dying long before we do. So we treasure the time and feelings from those relationships, but we then move on. Before Hinata could reply, Shepard burst out. I just don't get it. The Asari I can get. You outlive all other species except the Krogan, but I don't get this species doing it. What is so great about Naruto? I mean, he's a nice guy. Probably even a great guy from what we've heard, but why would girls be willing to share him? Hinata seemed confused by her outburst, but told her regardless. Because we all care about him. Naruto has suffered and overcome so much while saving so many people, that we want to give back to him any way we can. Plus, there are certain advantages to being with Naruto. Hinata finished with a blush on her face. Shepard didn't get that though. She asked in a confused tone. What do you mean? Does he have money? Hinata started stuttering. Just imagine it, 'cause I'm not writing it, and her face got more red as she answered. Well, he has money, but it isn't that. He's nice, but he also has a lot of energy. He fulfills you in so many ways, he never gets tired, he's naturally, well gifted, and the clones. Oh my! Nothing can compare to the clones. Now Hinata's face was tomato red, and Shepard was blushing, finally realized what she was talking about. Even Liara looked away in embarrassment. The three were interrupted by Naruto yelling with a huge grin. Geez! And Tsunade-bachan calls me a pervert. She should talk to you, Hinata. Hinata eeped and buried her blushing face in her hands. Luckily, Kurama quickly distracted Naruto. Gura soon walked over and plopped down. He soon spoke in a winded voice. Geez, that kid just doesn't get tired. Sorry for making you play with Kurama, Gurus. Hinata quickly responded to his comment. Gurus just waved his hand before claiming. No problem. Used to play with my little sister the same way before I joined CCC. It was actually kind of fun. A nice way to relieve some stress that had built up. Never took you for a kid person, Gurus. Shepard teased. Gurus just shrugged before responding easily. You'd be surprised. After spending almost a decade dealing with criminals and scumbags day in and day out, the innocence of a child is downright refreshing. Even if he has enough energy to run circles around me. Their talk was interrupted when Naruto walked over with a struggling Kurama slung over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. He then informed the group. I sensed the others arriving together. They'll be here in a few moments. True to his words, a large group quickly appeared from the trees. Once they stopped in front of them, Naruto announced. I guess I'm in charge of the introduction. Guys, these are our alien visitors that you've no doubt heard of. This is Jane Shepard, Gurus Vicarian, and Liara Tsoni. Shepard saw the group quickly look them over. She also took the chance to examine them when Naruto continued. This is Kiba Inuzuka, and Akamaru. His Nin dog. Kiba was a remarkably feral-looking person with rather sharp teeth, red marks on his cheeks, and slit pupils. He had brown hair, and appeared to be about Naruto's age. Akamaru was a huge white dog. Kiba nodded and spoke. Hey! Shepard quickly returned a short greeting. Shino Abirame. Shino was a rather tall person who seemed to put an effort into showing as little skin as possible. A large coat had a collar which covered his mouth, a hood which covered his hair, and he wore a pair of sunglasses. Hinata was also standing at his side, although Kurama stayed near Naruto's leg. Shepard nodded uneasily at the person, remembering Hinata said that he apparently had bugs in his body. Shikamaru Nara, and his wife Shiho. Shepard examined these two slightly closer due to knowing that these two were apparently among the most intelligent in this world. Shikamaru managed to give off a feeling that screamed lazy. His black hair was up in a spiky ponytail, and he had rather narrow eyes. Shiho had light blonde hair that had a number of stray hairs, wore a set of thick glasses, and seemed to be wearing a white doctor's coat. Shiho was hiding behind an annoyed Shikamaru, who muttered about something being troublesome. Ino Yamanaka. Ino was a cheery blonde with her hair done up in a ponytail, except for a single bang which covered one of her light blue eyes. Shepard immediately noticed her provocative clothing that emphasized her womanly curves, although she was more slender than the Hokage and Hinata. She greeted the trio enthusiastically. Chuji Akamichi. Chuji was a large boy with a long mane of red hair and wearing a peculiar set of red armor. He also seemed to be in the middle of eating a large bag of chips. He just nodded at the trio. Niji Hyuga, Hinata's cousin. Niji was a remarkably feminine-looking man. His dark brown hair was longer and more well cared for than Shepard's. He was dressed in a loose kimono-like outfit. Shepard also noticed that he had eyes very similar to Hinata's, with his lacking the slight lavender tint of Hinata's. It made him look to be blind. He gave a very dignified greeting to the three. Rock Lee. Shepard once again decided that this was clearly a different species than her own. Lee seemed to have perfectly round eyes, and the thickest pair of eyebrows she had ever seen. His black hair was cut into a bowl haircut. He was wearing a horrendous green jumpsuit, with orange leg warmers, bandages covering his hands and forearms, and a lighter green vest. He gave a very loud and enthusiastic greeting. Tenten. Tenten was a cute girl with brown eyes, and grown hair done up in two buns on her head. She was wearing a white blouse and a burgundy hakama. Interestingly, she also had a large scroll hanging on her back from a sling she had around her shoulders. And you've already seen Gaara, Temari, and Kankura. Shepard was surprised at seeing the Kazekage, but managed to not let it show. After the introductions were finished, the group split up into several smaller groups. Shikamaru had laid down by the nearest tree and apparently went to sleep. Shiho had followed him, but was quickly drawn into conversation by Liara. Chuji had also followed, leaning against the tree as he ate his chips. Ino gathered Temari, Tenten, and Hinata together before dragging them a small distance away to talk. Lee approached Geras and started screaming about youthful fire or something to the terrified Turian. Shepard felt like she should help Geras, but eventually decided it wasn't worth it. She instead went over to the last group. It consisted of Naruto, Neji, Kiba, Shino, Gaara, and Kankura. As she approached, she heard Naruto questioning. So either Sakura or Sasuke decided to come? Are you sure you told them, Kiba? A slightly irritated Kiba immediately answered. Yes, I made sure to tell them. If they didn't come, it isn't from not knowing. Shepard saw Naruto looking sad as he ran his fingers through his hair. He finally commented. Sorry if I sounded like I was accusing you, Kiba. I am just upset that they didn't come. I haven't seen either of them for years. Shepard finally interjected herself into the group by asking. Sorry, but who are these two? Sakura and Sasuke? Naruto quickly explained in a tense voice. My former teammates. Genin are placed onto squads with two other Genin and a Jounin instructor. Kakashi was our instructor. Shepard raised an eyebrow before asking. So why didn't they come to see you? It seems logical that the two feel awkward about meeting Naruto again, Shino said in a calm voice. His words made Naruto grimace. Why? Shepard felt guilty from asking, but she just didn't understand. Neji was the one who started explaining. Sasuke defected from the village about 7 years ago to join a traitor. Naruto fought him about 2 years ago. After defeating him, he brought him back to the village. Sakura and Sasuke announced their engagement several months ago. Shepard was still confused, although she could see why meeting with Sasuke might be awkward. Luckily, Kiba bluntly added, Naruto liked Sakura for years. Brought Sasuke back just because he had promised her he would. Even confessed right afterwards. She told him no. Shepard flinched, now seeing why the two talking would be awkward. Kiba wasn't done though. And he didn't exactly bring Sasuke back in good condition. One of his Sharingan were destroyed in their battle, and he ended up giving the other one to Naruto. For Jujutsu users, that might as well be death. Now clearly seeing the pain written on Naruto's face, Shepard changed the subject by asking. What is this Sharingan? You mentioned it several times last night, but you haven't actually explained what it is. Really? I was sure I did. Naruto commented as he got into a thinking posture. He finally shrugged before continuing. I guess we should rectify that. Neji, I think you would be best suited to explain to her about Jujutsu. Neji seemed slightly annoyed, but quickly erased all emotion from his face before informing Shepard. Jujutsu are a type of Kekkai Genkai, or bloodline limits. A bloodline limit is a genetic trait which is passed down through the blood of certain individuals. These traits allow the user to utilize chakra in ways ordinarily impossible for others. Jujutsu, or eye techniques, are bloodline limits which affect the eyes. Suddenly, the veins around his eyes bulged, and a pupil became visible. Shepard backed up slightly at the intimidating sight, suddenly feeling like his eyes could see everything about her. Negi didn't react to her discomfort, just continuing. The Hyuga are known for our Jujutsu, the Byakugan. With it we gain a 360-degree field of vision, are able to see through walls and other solid objects, telescopic vision, and the ability to see chakra. I am easily able to see 800 meters in all directions, while Hinata is capable of seeing over 10 kilometers in a single direction. Neji then deactivated his Byakugan. Shepard blinked in utter shock and awe. If what he was saying is true, and he had little reason to lie, then Shepard could see the pure combat potential such an ability would allow. Being able to place all the enemy positions on a battlefield, spot ambushes or snipers. It would completely remove the element of surprise from any plans the enemies might try. Even the most advanced scanners couldn't do that, since most suits could be modified to hide the wearers from any scanning equipment. He might even be able to spot people under camouflage. She did her best to control herself, but couldn't hide her eagerness as she turned to Naruto and asked, "So I assume this Sharingan grants you similar abilities?" Naruto shrugged before responding easily. "Somewhat, but the two are quite different. The Byakugan is most suited for scouting purposes, although the Hyuga have found multiple ways to use it in battle. However, the Byakugan can't compare to the Sharingan in battle, due to the multiple abilities it grants that are meant for battle. The Sharingan isn't able to see through objects, has a field of vision only slightly wider than normal eyes, and lacks telescopic vision. It does give an incredible boost in perception, to the point where its user is capable of predictive capabilities. The Sharingan gives the user a photographic memory when it is active. The user also gains vastly enhanced reflexes when it is activated, due to the increased neural activity. Like the Byakugan, the Sharingan is capable of seeing chakra. A Sharingan user is also able to copy any action which they are physically capable of by using these skills, whether they be fighting styles or even a person's handwriting. The perception allows even the tiniest movements to become obvious. We are able to examine how chakra is shaped and molded in techniques, and the photographic memory allows us to recall it all perfectly. An ability many people disregard, which I have found to be the most useful, is the Sharingan's ability in Genjutsu. By meeting a person's eyes with it, I can hypnotize a person. I can plant thoughts and suggestions in their minds, which most Genjutsu users aren't capable of. Or I can use eye contact to perform other Genjutsu, like putting the target to sleep, induce paralysis, or create various illusions. Shepard once again had to contain her awe at the explanation. The various things it granted all had enormous potential, but the hypnotic ability was possibly the most dangerous. Planting thoughts and suggestions in others just through eye contact. The amount of damage that might cause if abused was enormous. Not to mention illusions. Shepard guessed that was what he had done the previous night when he showed them the QB attack. "Do you think you can show me this Sharingan? I would also request that you demonstrate this ability for hypnotism, if you don't mind," she requested. Naruto got into a thinking position for several moments before nodding and saying, "Sure, this is actually a good time to figure out more about how your bodies react to chakra. Niji, do you think you can observe how my chakra reacts when I insert it into her body? I tested out if Genjutsu would work on her yesterday, but I didn't want to risk keeping it up too long if her body reacted negatively." Niji nodded and activated his Byakugan. Naruto nodded before turning back to Shepard and asking, "Are you ready? I'll do several different tests. First, I shall do more overt Genjutsu." Shepard nodded, and prepared herself for something to happen. She watched as Naruto's left eye changed into the same form as yesterday. She examined it for several moments before trying to see if the Genjutsu had taken effect. She immediately decided it had when she felt herself being restrained. She turned her head and saw a frickin' tree, was binding her. Figuring this was the illusion, Shepard immediately felt amazement. It was so real. She felt the bark against her skin, smelled the slightly sweet scent it was giving off, and even heard the leaves rustling in a wind. If its branches weren't formed in such ways that they restrained her entire upper body, she would believe it was real. She half expected it to disappear as soon as she realized it was an illusion, but it stayed. Frowning, she tried to move, but it still held. Now firmly irritated at the illusion that didn't seem like an illusion, she started struggling fiercely. The tree held steady though. She finally gave up and looked at the clearly amused Naruto. The tree soon disappeared into nothing. Shepard stumbled slightly as a sense of vertigo gripped her before she regained her balance. Shepard started rubbing her arms where she felt a lingering phantom pain from rubbing herself against the rough bark, but her skin was completely smooth when she looked. She finally murmured, "That was far more impressive than I had thought. I figured the illusion would be fragile, but it was as if it was real." Naruto nodded before explaining. Genjutsu work by manipulating the brain. The brain controls everything. By manipulating your brain to believe a tree was there, you weren't able to act in ways that contradict the situation your brain was convinced was real. Niji, what did you see? Niji replied without turning off his Byakugan. It is actually quite fascinating. Her brain structure is almost completely the same as our own, although there are several very small differences along with the usual microscopic differences between individuals. The brains of the other two are also very similar. The strong similarities between our brains allow Genjutsu to work on them. In fact, their lack of chakra seemed to make them more effective since they don't have the natural resistance to chakra that we do. One thing that worries me though is how the chakra interacted with her body after you stopped the Genjutsu. Her body absorbed it, causing a brief disruption in her blood flow and I suspect neural activity. This probably resulted in a brief moment of vertigo. The two looked at Shepard for confirmation. She blinked in thought before nodding and answering. There was a brief moment where I felt off balance. I thought it was normal. Niji nodded before continuing. Her body clearly reacted to the chakra. Luckily, Genjutsu uses so little chakra that any harmful side effects were limited. Larger doses of chakra might have other effects that I can't predict. Continue, and I'll try to see anything I missed. Naruto nodded and turned to Shepard. She briefly met that blood-red eye he had before focusing on his face. He had a thinking look for several moments before he muttered, I'm not sure if I should. Not only could it possibly have harmful side effects, but this is also a very powerful ability. I shouldn't give away this information yet. Shepard frowned. She should offer him a reward for doing it. He was right. This was a powerful ability to just give away information on. It was only fair. She quickly told him, I'll reward you if you do. Naruto smirked before asking, What kind of reward? What can you possibly do for me? Shepard's mind was immediately flooded with some very racy and perverted ideas on what she could do for him. She blushed heavily before fixing him with a glare. He just grinned before continuing. I see you realized. Did you realize that I used it on you twice? Shepard blinked in confusion before she exclaimed softly, The reward. Naruto nodded before enlightening her. Yes. See, there are several restrictions on the ability. Simply put, I simply put a thought into another person's head with a small desire to follow it. A sufficiently smart person might be able to see fault with the thought though, and decide to not act on it. This also means if I implant a thought that didn't fit their previous line of thought or implant a thought that is too outrageous or out of behavior, they can realize that I implanted the thought into their minds. You followed the idea of a reward because it was a reasonable response to my words. When I placed several more outrageous ideas in your head, you realized what I was doing. There is a technique which manipulates the victim's memory and places a stronger compulsion on the person to make them follow the thought, but it is now impossible following the war. So you can stop thinking about me manipulating you or anyone else. Shepard blinked before questioning. So now you can read minds? Naruto just snorted before replying with a smirk. Please. Any intelligent person who heard about this technique would obviously worry about it being abused. Shepard blushed at that. Luckily Negi interrupted to inform them. The same thing occurred. The fact that this technique uses even less chakra than regular genjutsu stopped the vertigo from occurring. I would recommend asking for Tsunade's assistance though. I don't have the medical knowledge to know whether the chakra is causing any damage to her body when it is absorbed. Naruto nodded before commenting. I guess that is the best option. For all we know, our chakra might be poison to her body. I don't think we should leave it up to chance. Shepard, do you mind if I take you three to Tsunade for a checkup after this? She's renowned as the best medic in the world. She'll be able to find out if anything is wrong. Shepard thought for several moments. Although she didn't feel sick or anything, she really shouldn't risk it. If there was any delayed effect, she'd rather know about it. She also didn't really have anything else to do until the Normandy was able to send another ship to pick her up. She finally nodded as an answer. Naruto grinned as he exclaimed, Great, we'll do that later. Let's forget the serious stuff for now though. Let's just have fun. Shepard had to grin slightly at the ever-cheerful Naruto. He could get serious, But Shepard just knew that Naruto was at his most natural with a grin on his face. She also liked the cheerful Naruto better. Naruto was tense as he led the trio towards the Hokage Tower. Although he was confident in the decision the Kage had made, it didn't stop this moment from being a turning point for his species. This decision would have far-reaching effects that they would have to take responsibility for, good or bad. They were about to make history. It was the day after the picnic with his friends. After the serious beginning, the rest of that time had been very fun. Naruto ended up getting into a brawl with both Kiba and Lee at the same time, but they were forced to stop after they knocked over a tree. He had a nice talks with Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro. The group had then gone to a barbecue place to eat. The group denied Naruto's request to eat at Ichiraku Ramen. Afterwards, things had gotten serious again. Naruto had taken the 3 aliens to Tsunade, who delighted in the opportunity to escape her paperwork and study 3 alien species. That night she had used her diagnostic jutsu to understand the aliens' basic physiology and how their bodies were reacting to her chakra. She then went into a whole spiel of science mumbo-jumbo that only Liara really understood about what chakra actually is. Naruto managed to pick up the general idea though. Apparently the planet exuded a type of radiation. This radiation seemed to cause 3 unique chemical processes that each produce a different type of isotope. One of these isotopes is actually produced in the brain of animals. This isotope apparently absorbs electrical energy from the synapses firing around it, and release the energy referred to as yin release, or spiritual energy. The next isotope is formed in the muscles of all living things. This isotope takes the electrical energy from the body's nervous system, and releases the energy referred to as yang release, or physical energy. Their bodies also seem to have adapted to these energy sources in a very unique way. Apparently, the training of their bodies causes more of the isotope located there to be produced at a faster rate, which then draws more electrical energy to produce more physical energy. High levels of brain activity also increases the production of the isotope in the brain, drawing more electrical energy to produce more spiritual energy. Their nervous system would soon shut down from lack of electrical energy is not for an adaptation they seem to have. When their nervous system started suffering from a lack of electrical energy, it seemed to automatically produce more. Technically, a shinobi's nervous system produces electricity on a scale the aliens can't possibly compare. So much electrical energy is running through their nervous systems that it would literally fry their neurons if it wasn't absorbed by these isotopes. Which is why a lack of chakra causes death. The isotopes in their body can only produce a certain amount of the energy in a certain time period. If too much of this energy is produced in a limited time, like during battle, the isotopes actually slow in their production of this energy. If this process slows too much, not enough energy is drawn from their nervous systems. When too much energy is left in their nervous systems, it fries itself. Naturally, a destroyed nervous system is equivalent to death. The third isotope is actually produced in plants. The plants then absorb energy the plant generates during photosynthesis to produce another type of energy. Natural energy. Naruto also questioned Tsunade about the chakra the Biji use. Apparently, there was even an answer to that. The chakra of the Biju was a combination of all 3, almost similar to Naruto's Sage chakra. All living things release the energy they produce into the atmosphere, which mixes together in a way a sage can never manage. The Biju, or more specifically, the 10 tails was formed when that energy reached a concentration level where it formed a shape. This also explained why the Biju couldn't be killed. Even if their body was destroyed, their remaining chakra simply absorbed some from the atmosphere till they had enough to once again take shape. After learning all this, Liara almost immediately came up with a theory. She stated the possibility that these 3 isotopes were isotopes of Izo, or element 0. The Omni tool wasn't advanced enough to reach a definitive result, so it was mainly based on similar characteristics. Apparently Izo is a substance where, if an electrical charge is run through it, an energy is released which can be used to create a mass effect field. A field where mass can be either raised or lowered. This caused a discussion on what the energy the isotopes release can be used for. Apparently, physical energy can actually create matter from nothing. Spiritual energy can actually alter the laws that govern the universe within a small area. When these are used together, Shinobi are able to do things that should be impossible. Natural energy was harder since Tsunade claimed it was such a rare art that little research had been done on it. She theorized, though, that natural energy simply made it easier to control the other energies. So it isn't that natural energy empowered his chakra, he just gained so much more control over it that his power reached a different level. Made sense, it isn't like senjutsu really worked any different than regular jutsu. He just gained the ability to take all his techniques up a notch. It must have just been because his control had increased to a ridiculous level. Liara had then gone on to explain how amazing this all was. Apparently the Asari and Solarians have been attempting and failing for thousands of years to find a way to produce Izo, or an isotope of it. The fact that not one, not two, but 3 isotopes had appeared naturally on this planet was nothing short of miraculous. Naruto swore the two could have discussed it for hours if he hadn't stepped in. He had to remind Tsunade why they had come. To find out if chakra was harmful to them. Tsunade had quickly assured them it wasn't. If they ever came into contact with a concentrated amount of the isotopes, they might develop cancer. The energy itself wasn't inherently harmful to them, though. Liara had quickly agreed due to the fact that Izo could cause cancer as well, but mass effect fields weren't harmful. After all, their entire system of interstellar travel relied on mass effect field being used on entire ships of people. Naturally, destructive chakra like chakra that had undergone nature transformation would still destroy them, though. The only issue was that their bodies didn't have a resistance to chakra, so any technique used on them would be more potent. The healing chakra felt extra good, and the genjutsu took longer to dissolve. Naruto would have been happy with just that, but Tsunade hadn't been. She had asked, more like demanded, that they come the next day to provide DNA samples for her to examine using technology instead of chakra. Naruto had literally spent the entire morning sitting in a room as Tsunade went crazy over the results. They had gone out to lunch before messengers had arrived calling them to the Kage chamber. As Naruto led the trio, he was asked multiple times what the Kages had decided. He kept his mouth shut though till they reached the chamber. The Kages were already there. Naruto walked away from the trio of aliens to lean on a wall before observing the proceedings. Gaara was the one who asked, "Shepherd, are you ready to hear the decision of the 5 Kages?" Shepherd gulped before nodding. She then muttered, "Yes, I'm ready." The Kages nodded together. Tsunade was the one to stand and start speaking. "It is the decision of this group that we shall agree to meet with your council." Naruto watched as Shepherd let out a sigh of relief. Tsunade then continued, "We have also decided to send our own people on your ship to meet with them on your citadel. Naruto shall be the leader of the group, but this shall be a coordinated effort on the part of the 5 Kages. As such, we shall each send several shinobi from each of our villages to accompany him. Reikage, why don't you start?" Stood before announcing, "I shall send Mabui and Samui. Mabui is used to organizing large amounts of data and planning schedules. Considering that this might take months, both will be useful. Samui is also a qualified censor, which could prove useful. Kazukage." Gaara stood and announced simply, "I shall only send Temari. She acted as our ambassador to Konoha for several years, and thus is used to political negotiations." Tsuchikage. Kuratsuchi stood before announcing, "I shall go myself to represent IWA. We will need several powerful political representatives in order to better represent the elemental nations." Mizukage. Mei stood with a smile before claiming, "I also agree with the Tsuchikage. So I shall also be attending these negotiations myself." Hokage. Tsunade stood and looked towards Naruto before saying, "I shall leave Konoha's choice up to Naruto. He shall be heading the mission and knows our shinobi. Ask for whoever you wish to accompany you, within reason of course." Naruto sighed and straightened. He took a moment to think before answering, "I would ask for both Shikamaru and Shiho. Their intelligence could prove valuable when interacting with the alien technology. I would also like to ask for a Hyuga. A Byakugan could prove invaluable." Tsunade nodded before replying, "Niji's Byakugan has surpassed even Takuma's. I could also Tenten for extra security. I think it best Lee isn't sent with them. If that is alright with the other Kage." The other Kage quickly agreed. Naruto nodded before commenting. That means there is a total of 10, including myself. That seems like a good solid number. Not too little or too many. The Kage nodded in agreement. Shepherd. When will your ship arrive? Shepherd quickly responded. My pilot gave an estimate of 3 days. Naruto nodded before saying. Okay. There is little need for the 5 Kage to remain here to see us off. I suggest the Kazekage and Reikage return to their villages, and that Tsuchikage and Mizukage clear up any issues and establish a replacement for their absence. The meeting quickly broke up after that. Shepherd found herself at the village gate 3 days later. According to Joker, they had finally adjusted the Normandy to handle the magnetic field. Naturally, Liara and Geras were with her, as was Naruto and all those who were joining him. Several others had also shown up. Tsunade and Kakashi had both arrived to see them off, not to mention a number of the people she had met at the picnic. Commander, I can come down any time. Just give me the coordinates of the landing site, and I'll be there before you can say snappy. Shepherd quickly replied to the Omni-Tool. Understood. I'll send you the coordinated in a few minutes. After deactivating the Omni-Tool, she turned to Naruto and asked, So where do you plan to have the Normandy land? Naruto turned to her and quickly told her. There is a large field a few miles to the southeast. It is slightly uneven terrain, but it is the largest area without trees in the immediate area. Shepherd frowned before telling him. The Normandy can't land on uneven terrain. Naruto just gave her a grin before responding. Kuratsuchi can handle that. We just need to get there first. That I can handle. Shepherd jumped when a clone popped into existence behind her. Before she could move away, the clone swept her up into a princess carry. Shepherd blushed before preparing to demand he put her down. She was cut off though when the clone started running before jumping into the air. Shepherd, to her eternal shame, soon found herself gripping the clone's shoulders and burying her face in its chest as it literally sped through the forest by jumping off branches. Her fear made it all rush by, but in reality this only happened for several minutes before the clone landed at the edge of a field. The entire group seemed to have beaten them there, and by quite a bit if their bored faces were anything to go by. Shepherd stumbled a bit once the clone set her back on her feet, naturally disorientated by the whole experience. Once she snapped out of it though, she delivered a quick punch to the clone, making it puff away into smoke. She then turned with a scowl towards the grinning Naruto. She pointed at him before angrily exclaiming, You could have given me some warning. Naruto just shot that infuriating smirk at her before replying, You wouldn't have approved if I had, and I didn't want to wait for you guys to walk here. Shepherd couldn't quite deny that this way was faster, but she still angrily turned her back on the blonde. She looked towards Geras and Liara to see how they reacted. Geras seemed just as annoyed as her. Being carried like that probably didn't sit too well with the proud Turian, but Liara just seemed embarrassed. Finally regaining control of herself, she turned back around towards Naruto and asked, So what now? Naruto thought for a moment before questioning. We'll need to know how big your ship is, and how large an area it needs to land. Shepherd nodded before answering. The Normandy is about 55 meters long, but it needs a bit more area than that to land. Joker, our pilot, is the best though. He can probably land it if he had an area of 100 meters by 50 meters. It will be safer and easier to land the larger the landing area is though. Naruto turned to Kuratsuchi and commented, Then I suggest we make it 300 meters by 100 meters. Kuratsuchi just scowled before replying, Then you come and help, Blondie. I don't feel like working up a sweat, and you got chakra to spare. Shepherd grinned in glee at the grimace on Naruto's face. It was 2 days before that Naruto had introduced them to Kuratsuchi in an unofficial setting. It seemed that Tsuchikage was not one to behave properly in unofficial settings. On the contrary, she seemed to take a particularly pleasure in annoying Naruto, and referring to him by rather demeaning nicknames. Shepherd had a feeling that she was actually just crushing on the blonde, but Shepherd certainly wasn't going to say that out loud. She'd seen what this species considers normal, and she wasn't interested in dying just because this species didn't realize not everyone could be punched through a wall without a mark to show for it. Shepherd did enjoy the annoyance Kuratsuchi caused in the blonde though. Shepard found Naruto to be nice and fun to be around, but she did not like how much the blonde seemed to enjoy teasing her. Naruto sighed and joined Kuratsuchi in front of the group. Shepard watched as the two made those weird hand signs in unison before both slammed their open palms onto the ground and shouted together, "Earth release, Earth-style rampart." Shepard then watched as a huge chunk of earth rose at least 20 meters in the air. Shepard swiveled her head with wide eyes to see that the rampart was at least 300 meters. The edges of it were also remarkably smooth. After the huge rampart stopped rising, Naruto stepped back and gave Kuratsuchi more room. The Sasuke made a few more hand seals before silently slamming her hands to the ground again. This time, the earth rose in segments to create a perfect set of stone stairs leading to the top of the platform. With it done, Kuratsuchi let out a sigh and wiped a few beads of sweat from her forehead. She then claimed in an annoyed voice, "I've been stuck doing paperwork too long if I worked up a sweat from just that. I'm out of shape." Shepard shook her head at that. That was rusty? Naruto had already explained that the Kage were the most powerful shinobi on the planet, but still? This entire species seemed to behave as if the laws of the universe don't apply to them, which they sort of don't if you consider their chakra. Chakra allows them to make the laws of physics their bitch. Shepard slapped herself as soon as she thought that. She was starting to crack from all this magic going on around her. Naruto obviously didn't realize her thoughts. He just turned and said, "That should be large enough. You can send the coordinates." Shepard decided to ignore her thoughts and just nodded. She activated the Omni tool and spoke into it. "Joker, this is Shepard. Come to the coordinates I'm sending you. The area you can land is pretty clear." "Got it, Commander." After that, it only took several minutes for Joker to arrive. The shinobi watched intently as the Normandy appeared in the sky. The Alliance frigate swooped down from the clouds like a bird. It circled the large platform several times before the ship came down to elegantly settle on the large platform of Earth. The group on the ground started up the stairs as soon as the ship had settled. They reached the top as a bottom portion of the Normandy lowered to reveal a ramp. A group of 4 was walking down it to meet them. Shepard couldn't hold back the grin at the sight of them. "Rex, Tali, Caden, Ashley." The 4 headed straight towards her. After stopping right in front of her, Caden commented in a joking voice, "Good to see you, Commander. Feels like we've been circling this planet for months waiting to pick you up." Shepard shrugged before replying, "It wasn't too bad for us down here. Many new experiences. Still, I'm ready to get back to our mission. We just need to drop these guys off at the Citadel." Caden nodded and looked at Naruto and the others before commenting cautiously, "Yes. It is interesting to finally see them after all we've heard." Shepard nodded and turned to look at Naruto again. She immediately saw that he was looking at her with an intense look that made her feel like he could see her thoughts. Fighting against the feeling, she spoke up. "I guess it is my turn to do the introductions. Guys, this is Naruto Uzumaki. He is in charge of the group we are transporting to the Citadel. Naruto, these are a few members of my crew. This is Erdnot Rex, Talizora Naarea, Ashley Williams, and Caden Alenko." Naruto shook hands with Alenko, but only exchanged a nod with a suspicious-looking Ashley. He stopped in front of Tali though and tilted his head. The Quarian shifted nervously under his scrutiny. Shepard wondered what the blonde was thinking. Naruto finally smiled and commented, "You're really pretty, Tali. It is a shame that you have to wear that mask." Shepard blinked in shock before seeing that Naruto had activated his Sharingan. Apparently it allowed him to see through the tinted mask. Shepard almost felt annoyed. Almost every species harbors a great curiosity on what Quarians look like, and he comes and is just able to see the answer immediately. A certain part of her brain, which she usually kept firmly suppressed, was raging at the unfairness of it. She had to cover her mouth to hold in her laughter though when she saw an embarrassed Tali stuttering. The young Quarian finally managed to squeak out a thank you before she tried to subtly position herself behind Shepard to escape from her embarrassment. Naruto didn't seem bothered by her embarrassment. Shepard even had a feeling he was probably rather gleeful with the Quarian's embarrassment over his comment. Instead, he just turned towards Rex and crossed his arms. Shepard immediately felt the tension rise as the two powerful predators stared each other down. So you are a Krogan. I've heard quite a bit about your species, Naruto commented in a surprisingly cold voice. Rex just grunted. And? Naruto didn't reply for several moments. Then his face changed completely. His mouth cured into a shit-eating grin and a fierce and excited glint entered his eyes. He then declared, "And I am so going to see if you match up to all the hype I've heard these past few days." Rex seemed slightly surprised by the declaration, but he soon smiled as well, showing off his sharp and jagged teeth. He then turned to Shepard and claimed, "I like this species already, Shepard. They've got quads." Shepard shook her head in exasperation at their behavior, but at least it is interesting. "Hey, have you forgotten about us?" a voice called out in an annoyed voice. Shepard chuckled as she saw that they had forgotten the others. A quick introduction followed. After that, things moved quickly. The shinobi that were coming with them said quick goodbyes before walking onto the ship. Slightly surprised at their nonchalance, Shepard moved to Naruto's side and questioned, "Aren't you going nervous to be leaving your planet? We are heading into space." Naruto just turned to her with a bright grin before immediately responding, "I'm not nervous. This is just the beginning of a whole new beginning, and I can't wait for it to start." Shepard could hide a small blush at his smile, but soon grinned as well. His enthusiasm is contagious. She was starting to feel excited herself. The start of a whole new beginning. She kind of liked the sound of that. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored Lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring Harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.